Evening, colleagues. Please be seated. Right, good evening. Before I formally start the business meeting of the City Council, could I remind members to use the microphones when speaking this evening to ensure that everyone in the room and watching online is able to hear everything. So first of all, can I welcome Craig Winter to the seat beside me, and could I ask you to read out the apologies, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors Bell, Frew, Joanne, Lambert, Lowson, Lafemba, Musharraf, Jackie Robinson, Karen Robinson, Stoker Walker and Wright.
Okay. Are there any further apologies?
Councillor Abbey.
Is that it? Sound. Right. We now move on to the minutes. There are actually 3 minutes we have to approve this evening. Does Council agree the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 5th of March 2025? Agreed. Does Council agree the minutes of the special meeting held on the 28th of May 2025? Finally, does Council agree the minutes of the annual meeting held on the 28th of May 2025? Thank you. Official announcements. I've received a request from the Liberal Democrat group for an urgent oral question following Monday's national announcement about the winter fuel allowance. The grounds for urgency is that Councillor Ferguson believes that it's in the public interest to receive timely clarification about what residents should expect regarding payments and the use of public funds at the soonest available opportunity, which is at this meeting of Council. I've agreed to allow the question, which is published on the items circulated at meeting agenda, and it will be taken at the start of item 8. Correspondence. Does Council agree to receive the correspondence from HM Treasury? Thank you. Petition. 2 petitions have been received. Can I call on Councillor Barry Stanners to present the petition regarding trees in Leamington Rise?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
This is a petition on behalf of the residents of Leamington Rise. It reads, "The residents of Leamington Rise acknowledge that pruning work has been carried out on the trees on Romsey Grove. This has been carried out on the trees and consists of the removal of lower branches, but the general consensus of opinion is that more needs to be done and a large number of trees should be removed. We also request that the height of the trees is reduced to allow light into west-facing properties, as the properties were there before the trees were planted. The footpaths are still in a condition due to areas of heave caused by the tree roots, and they need remedial work to prevent trips and falls. The petition has been signed by 43 residents."
Okay. Can I call on Councillor Hay to respond?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to those who've signed this petition and to Councillor Barry Stanners for presenting it to Council tonight. Our overall aim is to ensure a sustainably managed, protected, healthy and diverse tree population with sufficient canopy cover to benefit everyone who lives in, works in or visits the city. Under the Council's policy, our guiding principles are to protect and care for trees and hedges and to plant more of them, to increase the city's canopy cover from the current 18.1% to 20% by 2050. The policy also makes clear that Newcastle City Council will generally avoid felling trees unless it's deemed necessary. We acknowledge that residents of Romsey Grove have raised concerns, expressing the view that more needs to be done, particularly with regard to reducing the height of trees, to improve light and carrying out remedial works to prevent trips and falls. However, following an assessment, the strategic tree team has concluded they are unable to support this request at the current time, but we will continue to monitor the situation. The Council is committed to moving to a more proactive approach to tree management. However, this must be done in line with established Council policies and within the limits of available resources, ensuring we can continue to manage public liability appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. Does Council agree to receive the petition? Okay. The second petition has more than 2,500 local signatures and is therefore the subject of a time-limited debate at full Council. The procedure is that the presenter will have 5 minutes to present their petition and there is scope for Council to debate the matter for up to 15 minutes. I now call upon Rachel Locke to present the petition on behalf of Save Newcastle Wildlife, titled Save Leazes Park from Saudi Super Stadium.
Save Newcastle Wildlife is calling for a referendum on plans for a new football stadium to be built on Newcastle's oldest park. According to Newcastle City Council, there have been no discussions about the proposed stadium, yet the mainstream media has been awash with stories of how a new stadium will be built on Leazes Park and is merely awaiting Secretary of State approval. Leazes Park is the oldest park in Newcastle and has provided green space for people and wildlife for more than 150 years. How can plans to pave over part of this historic park have progressed without the knowledge of Newcastle City Council? And how have the people of Newcastle not been consulted on the plans? In 1857, 3,000 people petitioned Newcastle City Council for ready access to some open ground for the purpose of health and recreation. In 1873, Leazes Park was opened for the people of Newcastle. Since then, millions of pounds of taxpayers' money has been spent on making Leazes Park a green and pleasant place for people and for wildlife. In more recent years, the park has hosted the Green Festival, the North East's largest free environmental festival, and has been cared for by the Friends of Leazes Park. There are more than 1,000 trees in the park, as well as shrubs and hedgerows, which support insects and other wildlife, including bats, birds and hedgehogs. Sacrificing the city's oldest park, public park, accessible to all, for a Saudi super stadium accessible to few, would quite simply be scandalous. If these plans were to be given the green light, it would set a dangerous precedent for parks and green spaces across the city. Almost 30,000 people have signed this petition. Will the Council listen to the people of Newcastle and beyond and observe its duties to conserve and enhance the city's parks and green spaces and their biodiversity to support a referendum on this important issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watt. Can I now call on the Cabinet Member, Councillor Greenhoff, to respond? Will Councillor Kilgour stand ready, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Ms Locke and Save Newcastle Wildlife on behalf of Save Leazes Park for bringing the petition, and I appreciate the passion which you spoke of tonight. Newcastle United is a key stakeholder for the city, and they have made clear their intention to increase their day-to-day revenue streams as they aim to compete with the country and the continent's biggest football clubs. This includes, no doubt, additional fans at matches and bidding to host major events. As football clubs up and down the country are looking to do, they're looking at how they have looked how they can increase their income, and we have seen other examples of this across the country. I'm no football finance expert, but it has been clear for clubs up and down the football pyramid that income is key to climbing the ladder and competing for the game's biggest honours, and maximising match day income is one of those. However, I must be absolutely clear, regardless of speculation, we have received no planning application from the club to develop land at Leazes Park or anywhere else in the city for a stadium or redevelopment of St James's Park. As with any application, if an applicant came forward, the planning authority will assess this through the statutory processes that we have. There will be significant public engagement as part of that process. A key part of the process, whoever the developer is and wherever the plot of land they wish to develop, is proper consideration for the possible environmental impacts of the proposals. Newcastle United will be treated no differently to any other in this respect. The speculation around Leazes Park is just that, speculation. The coverage on the subject in the international media, wherever else, is beyond the Council's control. As a Council, we will always listen to ideas and proposals as they come forward, and those who wish to engage with us as the local planning authority, we will happily advise about planning processes and that are in place to protect our communities, our wildlife and the environment. So, Council, I cannot move a motion for a referendum on these plans because the plans have not been submitted, and I therefore propose that we note the petition that Ms Locke has presented. Thank you.
Thank you. I have here that Councillor Kilgour wants to second that proposal. Okay, thank you very much. Up to 2 opposition members may now speak. I don't have any advance notification. Does anyone? Yes, Councillor Ferguson. Oh, sorry, Councillor Byrne.
Okay. I just wanted to raise a point of order at this point because the response given simply referred to planning. Leazes Park is a city asset. It does not belong to the club. And I would like to note that I asked on the 16th of March for confirmation of the legal status of Leazes Park as to how it fits within the council's portfolio, and I'm still waiting that confirmation. So I think it's very important in any discussion that it's made clear it's not just about whether the council looks at it from a planning perspective, it's about whether the council makes a decision to give the park or sell the park to the club. And I'm very concerned that that was not made clear in the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. That's not strictly a point of order. So you've made your point, so thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wanted to make a couple of observations on the back of the petition. I think it helps no one at this stage that there is a lack of clarity on the substantive plans that will be brought forward. And the sooner there's a planning application in that makes it clear what the club intends to do, all for the better. Because I sympathise with what Councillor Greenhoff has said. We all want to see our club thrive. We want to see it do well. It's a good thing for the city and for the fans when the club wins, as we've seen in the course of the past few months. But whatever the plans are, whenever that clarity arrives, we must, absolutely must, have crystal clear public engagement and consultation in line with the proper processes. I understand entirely why this petition has been brought, and I would hope sincerely that in due course, whenever the plans are clearer, that the proper processes are followed and that everybody's views are taken into account. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Could I ask the Cabinet Member to respond to the debate and remind us what it is he wants us to do with the petition?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As I propose, it's that we note the petition. Obviously, as we've made clear, there is a statutory legal duty that we would, of course, have consultation should any application come forward, but we cannot hold a referendum on something that doesn't currently exist, Lord Mayor. So I note that we note the petition at this stage. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Does Council agree to deal with the petition as proposed? Agreed. Agreed, okay. Thank you for your attendance tonight, Ms. Law. Thank you. Right. Public questions and addresses. One request to address Council has been received. Can I now invite Mr Brian Moore to address Council on Operation Shelter, and can Councillor Story stand ready to respond, please?
Dear Councillor, I watched Anna Hall's unflinching Channel 4 expose revealing the years of abuse of girls as young as 11 endured from grooming gangs, the misogyny that allowed so many blind eyes to be turned, and how little has changed today. Her 2004 film, Edge of the City, was the first televised expose of what we now call grooming gangs, born of research she had begun after a chance meeting 5 years before with a senior director of Bernardo's children's charity, who told her that they had noticed a new pattern of child abuse. Groups of men were targeting vulnerable children, almost always white girls, usually in the care system, befriending them, giving them drinks, drugs, whatever, befriending them, becoming boyfriends, then having sex with them, and then offering these to other men. Northumbria Police launched Operation Sanctuary in 2014, 15 years after Bernardo's had identified the problem. The then Chief Constable Ashman said his force were particularly aware of a small scale of grooming, but did not know the full scale that it was there. Operation Sanctuary was launched and to precisely find out what the potential problems were, and with the cooperation of authorities, voluntary groups, etc., bars, they did their investigation. More than 700 victims were identified in Operation Sanctuary, and an additional 108 in the smaller Operation Shelter, with 461 suspects interviewed and 93 convictions. The suspects came from nearly every single community you can mention. During the investigation, the suspects came from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Kurdistan, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Albania, and Eastern Europe. The abuse was revealed following the conviction of the defendants of a group of offences, including rape, sexual assault, drug crime, and trafficking for sexual exploitation. A serious case review was then carried out over Operation Shelter, which was commissioned by this council in May 2015, chaired by then retired barrister David Spicer. The report that the retired barrister went into response by the authorities in Newcastle to child sexual exploitation, concluded that victims received effective protection after the launch of Northumbria Police, Operation Osprey. Before that, however, the force actions lacked a consistency and had little impact, it said. The report stressed that many of the reasons identified for lack of action in reviews in other cities did not occur in Newcastle. Interestingly, during the final years, the final trial of Operation Shelter, the court heard that an off-duty probation officer had called the police after seeing a convicted sex offender ushering drunken girls into his car in 2011. After a visit to the man's house, a police log of the incident said there was nothing to suggest there was anything untoward. Speaking at a press conference after the publication of the report, Darren Best, the temporary Deputy Chief Constable of Northumbria Police, admitted the incident had been a missed opportunity. I wonder how many other missed opportunities there had been over 15 years. I wonder over those 15 years of action, did the authorities not care? Or did these vulnerable girls not matter? Pat Ritchie, the former Chief Executive of Newcastle City Council, told a press conference that the victims, when they came forward, made our communities safer. We do not believe that what we have uncovered in Newcastle is unique, she added. Indeed, there has been evidence of similar offending in many other towns and cities. We believe that any area that says it does not have a problem is simply not looking for it, and I would encourage all areas to be proactive in their attempts to uncover sexual exploitation. Anna Hall made it clear that vulnerable children and young women are still at risk. Channel 4 estimates nationally that there are 3,500 women and young girls at risk now, today. Some of these will be in Newcastle and the larger Northumbria Police area. I come to my question now. What is Newcastle City Council and the other agencies have in place now so that the missed opportunities of 15 years are not being repeated today?
Okay, thank you, Mr Moore. Councillor Story to respond.
Lord Mayor, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Moore, for bringing the question tonight. I have 3 minutes to respond, and I'd like to just say on record now, 3 minutes is nowhere near long enough to address what I think is probably one of the most serious issues that we have as a society, i.e. the rape and sexual exploitation of women and children. So do forgive me if I slightly run over. Sexual abuse, rape and exploitation of women and children are society's most appalling crimes. They leave the victims with a lifetime of trauma, and it's something that in my working life I see every single day. Many in this chamber are watching online will sadly have their own experiences of abuse. As we know, 1 in 10 children will suffer some form of sexual abuse in their lifetime. And I want to say how sorry I am if my speech triggers you, if it invokes memories or feelings in you. I apologise for this, and I want you all to know it was never your fault and you are never to blame. Mr Moore's question relates to a specific form of sexual abuse. However, all rape and sexual abuse, whether perpetrated by a family member, most likely form of abuse, a priest, a neighbour, a teacher or a trusted adult in your life, is equally harmful. In our city, abuse is never acceptable, and I want to be clear about that in all of its forms. It will never be tolerated. However, in Newcastle, in every city in this country, it is happening to children right now, every single day. Returning to the specifics, as you've made reference to, the Council and its partners undertook a significant amount of work to safeguard women and children through Operation Sanctuary, Operation Shelter, as well as through the Joint Serious Case Review that was led by Dr. Spicer. The abuse that was uncovered and stopped through these investigations was appalling. I was an officer at the Council at the time, and I remember it very, very well. The Joint Serious Case Review and the operations themselves created a great deal of national and local learning on how criminal perpetrator groups were working, and that helped us to develop best practice and to identify the signs of abuse earlier and to prevent future abuse from happening. The review found that once agencies did become aware of the abuse, their response was swift and determined, and Newcastle then became viewed as an exemplar of best practice. The review report led to 33 recommendations, 18 of which were for local agencies and 15 of which were for the national government. Every single one of the local recommendations has been implemented, and we have been working with the new Labour government through the Casey audit to ensure that the remaining national recommendations that were not implemented by the previous government are taken forward urgently. From our local actions, we created multi-agency exploitation prevention teams, robust escalation processes, tools for colleagues to identify and report the earlier signs of abuse, and comprehensive training so that colleagues could learn from the experiences of those who endured the abuse. And many of those people worked with us to ensure that we were trauma-informed and that we listened to the voices of those who survived this abuse. These measures remain in place, and they've helped to keep local women and children safe. As noted in the report, legislation and guidance will never keep pace with perpetrators, and the successes in Newcastle depended on flexible testing interpretations of legislation and processes. And we continue to take this flexible and testing approach. And you might wonder why that's important. Well, the reason that's important is because perpetrators are always changing their strategies. They are always changing what they do, and they are always one step ahead. Online abuse, for example, is a significant threat. And every day we seem to hear more about institutional abuse, both in the Catholic Church, and the Church of England, and other institutions. And that continues to be uncovered on almost an industrial level nationally.
Are you nearly summing up, please?
I'm nearly
Sorry.
there.
Yeah.
Evidence is crucial in preventing abuse. And we know that the majority of perpetrators of group-based and group sexual exploitation are in fact white men. And we do not limit our efforts to identify and prevent exploitation by focusing on any one particular community. We consider all risks and all threats to women and children when we're working to deter, prevent and disrupt such offending, but nor do we shy away from confronting abuse, whoever is perpetrating the harm. Finally, we have eyes and ears out in our communities, in our city centres. We have street marshals, we have our Shout Up campaign. We have training for taxi drivers to ensure that they know about their role. And we are committed to providing specialist training to upskill our staff. We are not complacent, and we continue to work tirelessly to stop abuse from happening, tackling it when it does, and learning from those with lived experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Mr Moore, you can now have 1 minute to reply.
Thank you for not answering the question and for going... Don't interrupt me because I didn't interrupt you. Right. Let me finish.
Can we let Mr Moore speak?
Let me finish. I'm a member of the public. This question was not about abuse in the church, which the church is doing. It's about, this was specifically about Operation Osprey, the report that was produced by this authority, and actually, right, the 15 years of no action by this authority before Operation Osprey. How can you suddenly find nearly 1,000 vulnerable young women and girls who were abused from your answer, you are more focused in the holistic abuse rather than what my question was about.
Lord
Mr.
Mayor,
Moore
I
have a note, please?
cannot let that go. Every single child
I'm sorry,
who
Councillor
is
Story.
abused, who is
Councillor
sexually
Story, you've had your
abused,
chance to speak. I'm sorry.
and I
it's
deserve
Mr.
to be able
Moore's
to
turn.
respond to that because I very thoroughly
you are not
answered
allowed
your
to speak.
question, Mr. Moore.
Can I say thank you? Councillor Moore, you finished? Sorry, Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Council, for listening.
Okay, thank you. Right, we now move to reports referred from Cabinet. Council Plan. I call on Councillor Kilgour to move the report, to be seconded by Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I thank Leslie Story for her very considered, calm and informative response before I came up to speak. Lord Mayor, the Council Plan sets our vision and priorities for Newcastle. It is for everyone, our residents, our staff, delivery partners, city stakeholders and visitors. It shows what we want for our city and how we'll work to achieve it. 5 new priorities steer where we will invest our focus, our finances and our planning over the next 3 years in areas that residents tell us are most important to them and that support our city's growth and resilience. These priorities pinpoint the key actions we will take to address our biggest challenges, benefiting people now whilst building resilience for Newcastle's future. We will use all of the levers available to us through direct delivery, commissioning and procurement, through our partnerships and our convening and city leadership roles. We will ensure effective statutory services for all. That is and should always be our core business. Education, housing, health and care services for children and adults are the building blocks for society to live well, and they directly affect us all every day. We will protect and champion these essential services because they are the foundation of our successful city. We will create cleaner streets and neighbourhoods, increasing pride and belonging in the places we live. The scale of our neighbourhood services is colossal, and this council plan sets targeted action to reduce waste and antisocial behaviour, protect our biodiversity and increase resident satisfaction in neighbourhoods, because we know that when streets are clean, safe and welcoming, people connect with their communities and support their local businesses. We will create quality homes in united communities by developing neighbourhood plans that ensure affordable housing options across all tenures and improve community facilities to regenerate local areas. We will create easy movement around a greener city, connecting people to opportunities, services and communities, and reduce barriers faced by residents through disability, isolation or low income. We will continue to deliver the huge amount of activity driven by our Net Zero Action Plan, including heat decarbonisation for key sites in the city and our Blue Green Newcastle project, building our infrastructure, resilience to climate events and making Newcastle a more attractive place to live in. We will grow our vibrant, inclusive economy, creating more jobs at all levels, fuelled by the right skills and paying the real living wage. We will attract investment that nurtures new and existing sectors and continues to revitalise our high streets. And we will support cultural projects at the heart of our economy so that Newcastle remains a thriving location for talent, business and tourism. The Council Plan is accompanied by a comprehensive business plan for the year ahead, detailing the actions we will deliver against each priority and the metric we will use to measure our performance over the next year. And you can find those in section 4. And I would like to talk about metrics for a moment. Targets in local government have been around for more than a century, and it's safe to say that being accountable for our performance against targets is business as usual for us. We submit statutory returns to government on our service planning, delivery, spending and improvement, so that we can understand at a macro level how whole systems are working and the impact we are having. There is an infrastructure of performance touchpoints between us, government and our partners, irrespective of where we are in our inspection cycles, because government know that the services we deliver are just one, albeit crucial, element amongst many impacting the lives of our residents. We use performance information in different ways to improve our support for individuals, guide our commissioning decisions and evaluate our impact. This is business as usual for us. So the purpose of this council plan is to steer our overall direction at the highest level and pinpoint the key activity we will undertake to achieve our ambitions for our city. It is supported by our business plan for the year ahead and the council's performance framework to track our business as usual. Lord Mayor, I'm proud of this city. We are a city on the up with ambition to go further, achieve more and unlock opportunities for everyone who calls Newcastle home. And to do that, we must tackle head-on the inequalities we see in some of our communities. Our ambition to become a marmot city will aid us in that, and that work is threaded throughout this plan. I'd like to thank officers and colleagues across the council who've input into this council plan and its accompanying business plan. I'm confident that our focus on clear and tangible action will channel our expertise and resources to the issues that matter most to our residents. And I'm happy to recommend the report to Council, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kilgour. Councillor Hare, would you like to second, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'm pleased to be able to second the council plan. This is a clear and focused document that sets out what the council aims to deliver over the next 3 years. It is being shaped by contributions from Cabinet, officers, frontline staff and members from across the chamber, as well as by what residents, communities and partners have told us matters most. As a result, the plan gives the council clear direction and purpose. It will guide the decisions we make, the services we provide and how we measure our progress. Newcastle is a growing city. We now have more than 311,000 residents and a £10 billion economy. We are attracting national attention, investment and major cultural events. But we also know that some people are still held back by poverty, poor health or a lack of access to good housing, transport and jobs. That is what this plan seeks to address. To do that, it sets out 5 priorities that focuses our efforts where they can have the greatest impact. We will continue to provide effective statutory services that support people throughout their lives, with a renewed focus on reducing poverty and tackling health inequality. We will build on our work with communities to create cleaner streets and safer neighbourhoods where people feel proud of where they live and where recycling continues to improve. We will support the delivery of more affordable and better quality homes, improve conditions for tenants and promote energy efficiency where we can make a difference. We will work to improve access to transport and services so that more residents can move around the city safely, easily, especially those facing barriers due to isolation, low income or disability. We will strengthen our inclusive economy by supporting good jobs, growing skills, backing local high streets and encouraging more employers to pay the real living wage. This plan is not just a high-level strategy. It will shape services, it will shape Cabinet reports and how we monitor performance and progress across the Council. The appendix sets out how we will track delivery and stay accountable. I want to thank everyone who's contributed to this work. The voices of staff, frontline workers, residents and partners are reflected throughout. This is a practical and ambitious plan that builds on what we are already delivering. It gives us the focus and structure to go further, and I'm proud to second it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. The normal rules of debate apply here. We can have up to 6 speakers. 10 members have indicated they would like to speak, so I'll try and be fair to everyone. So first of all, I'll call Councillor Ferguson, and can Councillor Mayne stand by, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There's one thing that's certain tonight. Boosterism is alive and well in Newcastle. This council plan rightly highlights the things that make our city great, but it ducks a sober analysis of the very real challenges we face, that our residents face, that businesses, the voluntary sector and other organisations face. Anytime that anyone dares to suggest that things aren't quite perfect in Newcastle, we are shot down by the party opposite. We're told to go and live somewhere else. We're told we're talking the city down, torpedoing investment. But when I talk to stakeholders and people on the doorstep, the message I receive is loud and clear. They know there are issues, and they want to hear their politicians recognise them, talk about them, and tackle them. The leader mentioned statutory returns. Allow me to draw out some highlights. This council is in the bottom quartile of metropolitan boroughs on a worsening trend for the percentage of 16 and 17-year-olds not in education, employment and training. We are in the top quartile for adult social care expenditure, but in the bottom quartile for social care quality of life scores. We have the lowest number of completed affordable homes of any metropolitan borough. We are in the top quartile for the volumes of household waste on a worsening trend, but the bottom quartile on recycling. In some good news, we have a higher council tax base than the metropolitan borough average, but in bad news, declining business rates base. These are the statutory returns, these are the figures that are publicly available. It has been a consistent theme of mine from the moment I first stood up in this chamber that we urgently need proper metrics and measurable outcomes. That has been mentioned tonight, but we clearly have a different definition. I ask for a baseline, a concrete target, a timescale for delivery. Not just more homes, but how many and by when. The spending review today says that £39 billion has been allocated for social and affordable housing. We reckon that could equate to about 120 houses in Newcastle a year. We need radical candour on what's working and what's not. We need radical action to address this most challenging of national contexts. But of course, we know that this is much more difficult to deliver when this Labour administration cannot hide behind a Conservative government. We on the opposition side of the chamber have heard repeatedly that austerity is a choice. What choices are being made now? I have responded to three-year plans in 3 years, and all three have the same fundamental weakness. I repeat the same point I made in 2022. What is the concrete, measurable statement that sets out what this administration expects the city to look like in 5 years? We don't have it. Maybe next year's 3-year plan will tell us.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Can Councillor Hartley please stand ready? Can I call on Councillor Mains?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, as I've came after Councillor Ferguson, I am actually going to have to say something and say that as much as we talk what we do in the council up, the opposition members opposite always talk the city down. So there we go. There you go. Boo, boo. So I'm very interested in this council plan because it does look at quality homes in united communities, which is what our target is, and that will be measured on the successes that we have. We have made progress in housing as the year on, but we do also recognise, and I constantly say this at all meetings, that we have lots of challenges and lots of issues to face with our housing stock and with our housing programmes. But we are looking, our overarching aim is to provide safe homes in resilient and cohesive communities. That's why we get out there, that's why we're talking to residents, community groups and the people in neighbourhoods to see what their concerns are. This, of course, because we go into people's houses, means that we take back reports of different things, repairs, sometimes safeguarding, because a lot of people don't like to ask for things and they are entitled to them. So we are getting massively engaged with the community, which is where we want to be, so that we can make those reviews. We are, of course, delighted with the spending review, and I agree, 39 billion, yep, over 10 years isn't going to, touch the surface, but, we do have amazing officers in our council who won't just depend on that spending review money. They don't just sit back and look at the government for money like that. They actually get out and come up with other ideas in terms of bringing in money into the city. And I know that we're working on a very, very exciting and innovative plan to look at increasing more council housing in the city. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor May. Can Councillor Sathian stand ready, please? Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations on your election.
Thank you.
On behalf of Newcastle Green Party, I broadly welcome the Council plan's ambition. There is much here we can agree on, but we must measure it against the lived reality of residents across this city. So this Council plan, it includes, as Councillor Ferguson was hinting at, a lot of statistics. But I'm curious about how those stats sit side by side. On the page entitled Newcastle Our City, we see a range of stats that we can celebrate. Business growth, increased employment rates, the number of enrolled students, the UN Green Cities Award. Great. In the middle of all that, as you scan the page, you see a line that says children living in poverty, 34%. That's not just a jarring contradiction, it's a challenge. It says whatever growth we're achieving isn't reaching the people who need it most. And that's why I say again what I said in the budget meeting. Too often, this council is being left with no choice but to manage decline. And it sounds like a certain Mr. Sumner agrees. Thanks for the dosh, by the way, Sting. But we are not in the fields of gold. We're in a system that we're working within that has become one of cuts, crisis and short-term survival. And if we get to the motion later, drafted with the Food and Solidarity Movement who are in at the Public Gallery tonight on ending the two-child benefit cap and no recourse to public funds, perhaps we can dig into this a bit further. So what's the alternative? Well, it starts with an approach more rooted in community. I've been encouraged by the cross-party work emerging from sessions like the Community Relationship Builders meeting in Elsick. Residents and councillors from different parties from across the city came together to talk about what kind of city we want. Safer, fairer, more inclusive. We need all councillors to be as activist with this government as we Greens are. And yes, that means calling for redistribution. Wealth taxes up. Council tax for the poorest down, and a genuine move to community wealth building in areas like Byker and Walker that have been victim of how the economy is run. We need green jobs rooted here, embedding climate justice into our local plan. More social housing, a move away from developer-led models, and a move towards the protection of nature and our wildlife enhancement corridors. And let's also be honest about waste and recycling. The council plan talks about increasing recycling, but signing a 30-year contract with the Tees Valley incinerator contradicts that goal, as it demands we create more waste. We need to invest in the circular economy. Let's thank our frontline workers who do brilliant work in hard conditions, but let's also be clear that going chemical-free using nature-friendly methods may cost more, but will create more jobs. And with a government at war with nature, as the rhetoric around the planning and infrastructure bill shows, we need action. We are now in a council of no overall control, so let's work together. In the spirit of Labour, let's go further and faster. Collaboration, not centralised control. Let's build it together.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Lovett stand ready? Councillor Sathian.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I am pleased to speak in support of the Council plan and in particular to highlight the priority outcome of easy movement and a greener city, an area that speaks directly to my portfolio and one I feel passionate about. This priority reflects our commitment to making travel across Newcastle more active and sustainable, improving lives while also tackling the climate crisis. Over the coming year, we will approve our movement strategy, setting a long-term direction for transport in the city. Roll out our safer routes to school, including further camera enforcement around schools to protect young people. Expand our electric vehicle infrastructure citywide to support a cleaner, low-carbon future. refresh our local walking and cycling improvement plan, focusing on active travel routes that people use every day. Crucially, we are also embedding sustainability and public health into our planning with the introduction of a net zero public health needs assessment and continued use of our smart carbon inventory to monitor emissions and progress. These are not vague ambitions. These are deliverable, measurable actions designed to make Newcastle easier to move around and better to live in. Alongside regional work through the North East Mayoral Combined Authority, we are laying the groundwork for a fairer, cleaner transport system that gives people more choices and support our net zero ambitions. I fully support the Council plan and values it sets out. It's a plan that looks forward and delivers for our communities now and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sophie. Will Councillor Barry Stanner stand by? Councillor Lovett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to focus on the section of cleaner streets and neighbourhoods. The first thing that came to mind was let's just have clean streets to start with. Problems such as dog mess, litter, fly tipping, dead leaves and weeds growing through the pavement. There's an example. And roads. Things we see too often when we exit our homes each day. I read the report. I didn't see measurable targets. It's disappointing. Residents want to know by how much things are going to get better in the future. Employees want to know what their goals and challenges are and how they're going to be achieved. I looked at the business plan. It uses words like metrics to track and monitor delivery, but it doesn't state what those improvement targets are. Council should be already aware of the current baseline, the number of things that are delivered in year, and can set improvement targets such as percentage compliance to grass cutting, percentage reduction in fly tipping, percentage miles of roads swept on time, percentage increase in the amount of recycled collection. I just see less of this and more of that, count of this and count of that, procure this, prepare that, deliver this, conclude that, consult on time and continue that. Labour has clearly run out of ideas, and spending public money on more of and less of isn't smart. A council plan needs to be smart. Let's get some actual targets on the table. It's clearly time for change, and the Liberal Democrats are ready to lead that. And finally, can we have a grass cutting app so residents know when and where the grass is due to be cut? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Finally, Councillor Barry Stanners.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I welcome this report today. There's a lot of information in the document, but I want to focus my contribution on the cleaner streets and neighbourhood section of the report. In the last 12 months alone, within my ward of Leamington, the council have responded to over 700 cases of fly tipping. Now that's an incredible achievement that the team have managed to do that with the limited resources that we have available. But it's shocking that that is even required. So in this report, I really welcome a focus on ensuring that we have safe, clean communities that our residents can be rightly proud of. Apologies, it's locked. So I welcome this. I've lost my notes, I'm just going to blag it now. Joys of tech. So I really do welcome this area. This will be of huge benefit to the residents in my ward and the rest of the city. And I think the new legislation which the new Labour government have recently introduced on giving councils more powers to tackle fly tipping will work hand in glove to ensure that Newcastle is the cleanest, safest city that it can possibly be. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kilgour, would you like to reply to the debate?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Ferguson should try listening. Firstly, residents are at the heart of all we do and their views are threaded throughout the whole plan. And secondly, I specifically said that we must tackle head-on the inequalities we see in our communities. We're not shying away from anything. We absolutely acknowledge them and recognise that we need to do something about them. And if we didn't refresh our 3-year plan every year, you'd complain about that too. Councillor Hartley, I really object to the language you use around managing decline. I don't think it was appropriate that you gave an election pitch in this speech, but actually said very little about the council plan or the job of the council and the services that are within our purview. And I would remind members that the council plan is a high-level document. Much of the detail and the metrics are contained in individual directorate plans, and I'd hope members opposite would know that we provide over 500 services. To list targets and performance indicators for all of them in one plan would be unworkable. Lord Mayor, this is a sensible it's a sensible and good document. It details what it is we're going to do and it explains how we're going to do it. It reflects the priorities we know the priorities of our residents and of our partners. It is a sensible way forward, and I would hope that, and it's comparable to similar documents from elsewhere if people actually looked around and did that comparison. I hope Council will support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does Council agree to adopt the Council plan? No. No? Wait, we'll have to move to a vote. Can I ask Linda to start the go vote system, please? Has everybody who has been able voted now? The ones who are able to vote, and I realise that there's some of you who failed to vote. Right. Have you made a note of those figures? Okay. So Linda will now close the vote. And what I'm going to say now to all of you who have not been able to vote electronically, I will now ask in a show of hands whether you are yes, no or abstaining. So those of you in favour of allowing, in favour of the report, please show now, please. And thank you very much. And those of you who have been unable to vote electronically who are against, please show now, please. Thank you. Is anyone abstaining? Okay. So that is 30 in favour and 33 against. So that report is not accepted. We now move on to questions by members. As I mentioned in the official announcements, Councillor Ferguson will now ask his urgent oral question. Now, normally, of course, this is published, questions are published in advance and they are taken as read in the chamber. But as this is a new question, Councillor Ferguson, could you please read out the question?
soon as I get it up in front of me, Lord Mayor, yes. Sorry, 2 seconds. Got it. Right. On the 29th of April, a delegated decision confirmed that the Council would use £0.8 million worth of the Household Support Fund to provide 3,500 households in the city with payments equivalent to the winter fuel payments then axed by the Government. In light of Monday's announcement that the Government has U-turned and reinstated winter fuel payments for 75% of pensioners, does the Cabinet Member believe it is right to continue with these payments?
Okay, thank you very much. Can I invite Councillor Kilgour to respond?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's obviously very welcome news that the Government has listened to voices inside and outside the Labour Party and reintroduced winter fuel payments for the majority of recipients. Last year, we in Newcastle City Council recognised how important this support is and so provided payments of £200 and £300 to pensioners not eligible for the Government scheme who were in receipt of housing benefit and or council tax reduction scheme through the Household Support Fund. With this support being funded centrally for the coming winter, the Council are re-evaluating its allocation of household support funds. The design of the Household Support Fund 7 has been the result of close working with our voluntary sector partners, and their contributions remain important in the shape of the Council's delivery. We are exploring options to reallocate this funding to other areas of need within the Household Support Fund in line with DWP guidance and local priorities. This approach ensures that the funding continues to support vulnerable residents while avoiding duplication with national schemes. Payments were scheduled for December, so no payments have yet been made under the winter fuel provision. A further announcement will be made once this review has been completed.
Thank you, Councillor Kilgour. Councillor Ferguson, do you have a supplemental?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Thank you for that clarification. I think that's very helpful to know. Given that the money will be reallocated, do you believe that the uncertainty that this disconnect between local and national government has created helps or hinders hard-pressed households setting their budgets for the year ahead?
I do not recognise a description of a disconnect. Clearly, the Labour Party has listened to voices from local government and elsewhere when making the decision about reinstating the winter fuel payments.
Okay, thank you very much. We can have up to 2 further supplementals. Anyone? Councillor Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and may I add my congratulations to you.
Thank you.
The announcement today suggested that the household support grant would be replaced with a $482 million a year crisis and resilience fund, and I welcome that announcement that this will be a multi-year settlement. However, will the leader care to comment on the fact that the funding offered is less than the $1.25 billion that various charities who work in this area asked the government for? And would you care to comment more generally on the fact that the whole system of people having to come to the council in poverty to ask for money is inequitable and unfair, and what the government should actually be doing is doing things like remove the two-child benefit cap and otherwise making sure that those, whether on benefits or not, actually receive the support they need?
Thank you. Councillor Kilgour.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think the government works in pounds sterling, though, rather than dollars. Sorry, that was such a long question, I can't actually remember half of it. I think you asked about the household support... You asked about the Household Support Fund and the announcements made today. Clearly, we haven't had time to get into the detail of what that means, and until we have, I'm not going to be bounced into making some knee-jerk reaction or knee-jerk comment before I know the detail of what the government have announced today. I think we're on record as a group as having called for and supporting the lifting of the two-child benefit cap. We will continue to do that. We will continue to work with the Labour Party to ensure that that happens as soon as is possible.
Okay, thank you. Any other supplementals to this? No? Right. Well, we move on to the 2 questions for oral reply that we previously received. Well, 15 minutes is allocated for this whole time, so we've already started using it, by the way, so let's run through it quickly. So the next question, is again Councillor Ferguson to Councillor Kilgour. And the question is deemed to have been put. Councillor Kilgour.
The fundamental aim of government policy in relation to local government finance should be to ensure that resources are allocated in line with the need for statutory services, which is very closely aligned to relative levels of deprivation. Since 2010, successive governments have deliberately moved funding away from areas with higher needs and lower resources, such as the North East and including Newcastle, to other parts of the country with lower needs and higher resources. As identified by the Institute of Fiscal Studies, this has resulted in local authorities in the 10% most deprived areas experiencing a 23.4% real-term cuts in core spending power since 2010, compared with only 7.3% for those in the 10% least deprived local authority areas. The 2025-26 local government finance settlement started a significant shift in how grant funding is allocated to individual local authorities. The current government is seeking to reverse the inequitable approach followed by previous governments and to target a greater share of the overall resources available on the most deprived areas where need for statutory services is highest. We are awaiting further detail on the specifics of further changes to be made and will respond to any consultations that are published to ensure that we are better able to meet our residents' needs. Similarly, the 25-26 local government finance settlement signalled the government's intent to ensure that differing levels of resources across the country are fully taken into account when local authority funding is allocated. This applies to both council tax and business rates, both of which require significant change to ensure that resources are fully equalised across the country. Since the settlement was agreed in February 2025, the government has already consulted on the approach to resettling business rates, which would benefit the council significantly, and further consultations are expected over the next few months.
Thank you very much. Do you have a supplemental, Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. When the question was written, we didn't know the content of the spending review, and I was interested in the positive hopes that we would have out of it. Now that we know the detail of the following measures, the mere 1.1% increase in real terms for local government, the lack of SEND transformation funding before 2026-27, the continued delay on adult social care reform, or the core spending part of 3.1% predicted for local councils, based on the assumption that we will continue annual 5% council tax increases. Which of these is the worst outcome for Newcastle?
Councillor Kilgour.
As I've already stated tonight, until we've seen the detail and what that means to Newcastle, I'm not going to be drawn into making speculative comments about a very general announcement that's been made today. What I would say around adult social care reform particularly, though, is that I would much rather see something like that done properly, so that we get the best outcome possible, rather than rush something to appease critics and the party opposite. I think we've seen some very positive announcements made today, but like I say, we await the final detail.
Thank you. There can be up to 2 supplementals. Anyone want to ask a supplemental? Oh, Councillor Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will refer to questions Councillor Ferguson just asked, because I think it is going to be of a great deal of interest to a lot of our residents. Could the leader please comment on the fact that the government seems to be presuming that council tax will go up by 5% every year for the next 4 years unless this council makes even deeper cuts?
Councillor Kilgour.
Clearly the council, like every other organisation and every other household, has increased, clearly we have increased demand for our services. We know that we have increased complexity of need also for those people who need our services. and that costs more. We also know that we are subject to the same rates of inflation and increases in our bills as the same as everyone else. Not all of that funding is going to come from government. Some of it will come from council tax increases. Unless the government has made an assumption, as the government has done for every year that I can remember, that the councils will raise council tax by the maximum allowed. But again, I'll say, we'll wait for the detail, we'll make a comment at that point.
Right. Yes, sir. Sorry? Yes? Councillor Higgins.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I actually feel strangely underdressed this evening, actually. First of all, I'd just like to welcome the announcements by our excellent Chancellor today. It was some really excellent positive announcements that I think are really going to benefit our city. And if we look at £39 billion investment in affordable housing, I think that's one of those. But the question really I want to put is really about how it fits in with our anti-poverty strategy. And of course, I'm a councillor in one of the most disadvantaged parts of the city. So I think that the announcement to expand free school meals to 500,000 children and to invest a further £4.5 billion annually to repair our crumbling schools that have been neglected for 15 years. And I wondered if the Leader of Council would like to comment on those positive developments.
Thank you. Councillor Kilgour.
Thank you. Clearly, I too welcome those announcements. As I said before, I think there have been some very positive announcements made today in the Comprehensive Spending Review. We welcome them, but again, we wait for the detail to understand what it means for Newcastle.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to oral question 2, which is now 3, from Councillor Mark Mitchell. Again, it will be Councillor Kilgour to reply. The question is put, so can we please have your response, Councillor Kilgour?
Yes. That's my response.
Sorry, Councillor Kilgour?
Yes.
Oh, that's the answer. All right. Do you have a supplemental?
Yes, I do. I'd like to thank Councillor Kilgour for her comments. I think this is an issue that every single one of us hear about from residents from time to time because we're still relying on regulations from 20 years ago that said whether 20 mile an hour speed limit should be enforced. And I welcome her comment and I look forward to hearing what she and what our police representatives will do to move this forward.
I didn't hear a supplemental question there, Lord Mayor.
Was there no question? That was just a statement. You didn't ask a question.
Does the Leader of Council agree with me?
No comment.
Thank you. I have Councillor Taylor here who's said she would like to speak. Sorry, Councillor Kilgour.
I thought I'd escaped for a moment there.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. One of the proudest things I managed to achieve when the Liberal Democrats ran this council was putting in 20 mile an hour speed limits on our residential streets. But it is a problem if they're not enforced. And I recently contacted the police to ask why they wouldn't enforce them. And the reply I got was that it was based on a Department of Transport circular from January 2013, which states that successful 20 mile an hour speed limits are generally self-enforcing and that to achieve compliance, there should be no expectation on the police to provide additional enforcement beyond their routine activity. Would she agree that that recommendation from the Department of Transport is grossly out of date, and will she guarantee that she will get in touch with the Department of Transport and try and get them to update their guidance?
I've already answered that question, Lord Mayor, but maybe that's something where we've got some cross-party agreement and we can maybe bring a motion to council across the group, across the chamber.
Thank you. Is there any other supplementals? No? Okay. One question mark for written reply was received. The response is included in the supplemental agenda and published on the website. Oh, we now come to Cabinet Member Report, Leader of Council, Councillor Kilgour. There is no escape. I now call on Councillor Kilgour to present the report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can only apologise that people are having to listen to me quite so much tonight. So, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to bring you this Leaders' Report on the same evening as our refreshed council plan and its accompanying business plan. Together they tell an impressive story about Newcastle's achievement over the past year and our ambitions for the future. Greg, you chunter on. I'm amazed you can hear everything anybody says. My reply
Councillor Stone, please. She's only just started speaking, Councillor Stone.
I would expect nothing less from
please
Councillor
continue,
Stone.
Councillor Kilgour.
My report highlights some of our achievements. However, I cannot speak about the last 12 months without addressing the tragic events at Violet Close in Benwell that claimed the lives of 2 people just 2 weeks after I started in post. We are approaching the 1-year anniversary of the incident, but for many the wounds caused by that terrible night may never heal. The family of 7-year-old Archie York in particular have experienced a loss I cannot even begin to comprehend. Like we have so often seen before, an incident of such devastation also showed the very best of our city. A community in Benwell that came together for Archie's family and for all those impacted. A diverse and multicultural community united in grief and united with a sole purpose, to show the victims of this tragedy that they would never be alone. Our response was fast and wide-ranging, and I'd like to again thank all of our staff who were involved for their work in such difficult circumstances. Lord Mayor, it will take us some time to recover from 14 years of Tory austerity, with cuts and unfunded cost pressures of some £381 million. Rebuilding resilience in our communities and our services will not happen overnight. So given that context, I think we should celebrate the achievements of our organisation over the last 12 months and take stock of the breadth and depth of our impact on our city and recognise our dedicated council staff. This report outlines the huge amount we've delivered across our 3 previous priorities to build an inclusive economy, reduce poverty and tackle the causes of poverty and work towards net zero. It is by no means exhaustive, but every achievement demonstrates the strength of relationship between my cabinet and council officers. If I can highlight just a few things from the report. We've attracted investment in over 1,300 new jobs in the city through inward investment, secured government funding to complete the restoration of our Tyne Bridge, placed culture at the heart of our economy with the Novum Festival, iconic MOBO Awards to celebrate music of black origin and culture, and later this year we will host the Mercury Prize Awards. While we face significant challenges around inequalities across our communities, we have taken significant steps to tackle poverty, allocating over £3.7 million to provide free school meal vouchers for children over the summer holidays, introduced auto-enrolment for free school meals to ensure no child misses out at school, and to bring essential additional funding to schools through the pupil premium. And we've worked with the North East Combined Authority to provide 150 baby boxes to families via the Children's Foundation and supported 100 Newcastle families with a child under the age of 5 with baby bag access to via Love Amelia. We've invested over £96 million into new and existing council house stock, held our Marmot City Conference, and of course, a particular highlight of both of ours, I believe, Lord Mayor, supported Newcastle United to celebrate their Carabao Cup celebrations, from planning, community safety through to communications and the clean-up during and afterwards. The pride, inclusivity and respect we saw that day are exactly what makes Newcastle a uniquely special place. Now that our previous priorities are firmly embedded in our work across the council, and as we work towards becoming a Marmot City, we've set 5 new priorities that are clear and relevant to our residents, reflecting the issues they've told us are important to them. Each priority establishes short, medium and long-term goals for us to tackle the root causes of inequalities and to enable everyone in our city to thrive. These priorities are clearly set out in the council plan, as we've already discussed tonight, and they will underpin our planning, decision-making, delivery and performance reporting. I'd like to also take a moment to highlight our ongoing work around equalities, diversity and inclusion. At a time when globally the rights of women, our LGBT+ communities, people of colour and people with disabilities are under attack, it is all the more important that we stand by, stand with and stand for all of our communities. Our diversity is a strength, and I hope we are united in this chamber in celebrating it. Lord Mayor, I've recently been criticised for being too positive, and I believe the opposition said that just earlier, in the way I talk about Newcastle. I am clear that we have much more to do for our residents, that we have deeply entrenched inequalities that we need to tackle, and I do not shy away from that. But make no mistake, I make no apology for my love for and my pride in this city. Newcastle is the best city in the world. It is a city with huge potential on the cusp of something great. Our time is now. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Can I remind councillors that you have to ask questions on this item rather than make speeches? Councillor Kilgour, would you like the questions in batches of 3 and 4 or something like that? Can I just take them all? Take them all at the end, right? Okay. Up to 25 minutes is set aside for this. As you can see, we have our 25-minute clock running here. Can I point out it's not a target, okay? This is when we have to finish the item. So I have quite a number of people here who've already asked to speak. I see Councillor Stone, you have your hand up. Is that because you want to be added to the name? Right, okay, add you to the names. So, what I'll do, I'll just go through them all. There are quite a few. So if you can ask your questions very quickly. Can I call upon Councillor Mark Mitchell first, please? And Councillor Higgins, stand ready.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll draw your attention to the Section 5 new priorities, which starts with effective statutory services. Councillor Kilgour has heard this question before, but I'll ask it again. Surely, delivery of effective statutory services should have been the target of this city since this council existed. So why is this one of the new priorities, and why have we not found something else besides actually just getting on with the job of delivering services?
Thank you. Can Councillor Byrne please stand ready? I'll now call upon the Honourable Member for Magic Weekend.
You'd be pleased to know, or perhaps surprised to know, Lord Mayor, that it's not actually my question. But can I thank Councillor Kilgour for her report, for her stamina this evening, actually. She's keeping going very well. It's a very familiar theme, actually, to her. I noticed that one of our aims is about making transport more accessible and much fairer for all, particularly for those who struggle with social mobility, so that fits with our anti-poverty strategy. Therefore, whilst I warmly welcome the generous regional investment by the Labour government in transport in the region, nevertheless, does the leader continue to share my own view that long overdue investment and improvements to public transport in the inner and outer west of our city must remain one of our highest priorities?
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Penny Evans please stand ready? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On page 3, Councillor Kilgour, you state that after the ring-fence money for council housing and schools, everything else is used to deliver a wide range of services and meet the needs of our residents and city. But how can residents know whether this is actually happening when there are council funds that are being spent in secret? On May the 5th, I asked why councillors were not allowed to tell residents about a substantial sum of money that was being paid to a private sector organisation. I am still waiting for a response on this. Will you commit to sharing this information with residents? On page 6, you state the amazing figures...
Do you have a question, Councillor Byrne?
Sorry?
This is for questions only. Do you have a question?
That was a question.
So you've asked a question?
I can ask for 3 questions, I believe. I don't think there's a limit on the number of questions I can ask.
No, I think you can ask one. Is that correct?
Okay, well, I'll ask my following questions in writing then.
Okay, yeah, fine. Thank you very much. Can Councillor Huddart please stand ready? Councillor Penny Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'd like to thank the leader for her report and the time she gave to scrutiny. I know we spent quite a long time and we ran out of time to fully ask all of our questions, and I personally didn't get to ask a question, so I'm using my time tonight. It's just fantastic to see that Newcastle is again still leading the way in terms of climate action, and I'd like to know if the leader could give us some highlights of some recent projects that push forward our vision around a greener, fairer future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Shatwell stand ready? Councillor Huddart.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I had a couple of questions, but if I'm only going to get one, I'll have to decide which one. And I would like to say something very, very briefly.
No, can you just ask a question, please?
Yes, it was about what happened in Crats yesterday.
Can you just ask a question, please?
Right. My question relates to your statement about developing key sites like Fourth Yards. There's a mention of 2,500 homes for families. I've seen that site, and I would like to know what kind of family homes you will be able to put on that site. Will they be typical kind of three-bedroom semi-detached houses with front doors and back doors, or will there be high-rise blocks of flats with only one communal outdoor area, not that suitable for certain sorts of families? And do you think this will have an effect on our very large housing waiting list?
Thank you, Councillor Huddart. Can Councillor Christine Morrissey please stand by? Councillor Shapwell.
Thanks. Thanks for the report. The report shows our commitment to quality housing. Could you please expand on how the council is listening to residents on improving housing conditions?
Thank you very much, Councillor Shapwell. Will Councillor Chisholm please be ready? Councillor Christine Morrissey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have a little bit of context to set this into, but it is only a minute long.
No, can you ask your question, please?
We rank as the second highest authority in the North East for child poverty. 42% in Central and West, 32 in East and 21 in North. Well-paid jobs is one way out of poverty. The proportion of our care leavers who were NEET last year was 45%. So can Councillor Kilgour agree with me that these figures are unacceptable, and will she reassure Council that the recommendations from the current Employability Pathways Task and Finish Group will be implemented in a timely manner?
Thank you very much, Councillor Morrissey. Will Councillor Hartley please be ready? Councillor Chisholm. Oh, I don't think the microphone's on.
How's that?
Brilliant.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Kilgour, for this report, really focusing on important strategic questions. I want to ask you about the Council's growing reputation in the kind of cultural arena that you touched on. You mentioned the MOBO Awards and the Mercury Awards. And I know that community-led arts projects are very important in this city as well. And they have a really quite a big impact increasingly on promoting community development, improving the lives of residents. In Oostburn Ward, for example, the example of Shieldfield Artworks, Dwell Being and the Newbridge Project are nationally significant projects that demonstrate the value of art in community building in particularly in poor areas. They've developed the amazing Shieldfield plan that I urge everyone to look at. So what I wanted to ask the leader about is about the involvement of local community arts groups in developing the city's kind of profile in community development and arts projects, and how that slots into the council's strategy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can Councillor Ashby please stand ready? Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. How does the Leader of the Council square her declaration that working towards net zero has successfully been embedded in our everyday activity with the expansion plans reported this week for Newcastle Airport?
Thank you very much. And Councillor Barry Starnows, please be ready. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was going to be nice about peak talent pools and pathways and English as a foreign language, but in view of your strictures, I will pass on to the £19.4 million project on Tyne Restoration Facility, which is very welcome. It claims in the report that this will support 110 100,000 indirect jobs in Newcastle, as that is 77% of the economically active adults in the city. This is clearly a nonsense or fantasy economics, so I challenge the leader to withdraw these figures unless she'd like to write to us with any kind of justification, including for how long the grant effect will last, and at the same time, can she reflect that if simple things can be calculated and circulated so wrongly, which I suspect is the case, how robust is the cost estimate and the time it will take? If the cost estimate is low, as for these things for most big projects are, who picks up the slack? I.e., what risk is there to the council if things don't go to plan?
I'll let Councillor Kilgour decide which of those questions she wants to answer. Could Councillor Ferguson please stand by? Councillor Barry Stanners.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the leader for bringing this today. And particularly thank you for your comments about equality and diversity and inclusion. It's particularly timely given that June is Pride Month, so those comments are appreciated across the city. I just want to ask about the work that's ongoing to make us a marmot city and how our residents will benefit from that work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Taylor please stand by? Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In response to a question raised at scrutiny, which highlighted the clear underperformance of white working-class young men relative to their peers by an independent member of the committee, Councillor Kilgour pointed out that the way to reframe that would be to highlight how well our young women are doing. Are there any other educational inequalities, for example, between those with special educational needs and those without, or those in receipt of free school meals and those without, that she would similarly like to reframe?
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Can Councillor Barnett please stand by? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I saw in your report the figures about the Christmas market. Now, it's obviously very welcome that that's effective, but I was rather surprised by the figures, and I wondered if you could say how we calculated that 1.76 million visits occurred. Is this people who actually bought something at the market, or does it include people who just happened to go through the area in passing by? And how is the economic boost of around 90 million estimated? I just find that a very large figure for something that only lasts a few weeks.
Okay, thank you very much. Will Councillor Stone please stand by? Councillor Barnett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations on your election. And I welcome the leader bringing this report forward. And yes, so I want to ask about young people. And I think it's very important we, in this chamber, we think about the city's young people and how we're supporting them. I want to ask, what impact has Newcastle's Young Youth Fund and Careers Initiative had so far on the city and its young people, and what any particular highlights this has caused? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've reached the end of the people who asked to speak, so I'm now taking the two people who've indicated from the floor. So can Councillor Campion stand ready? Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I had hoped to raise this in the council plan debate, but I will ask it as a question now. I have raised this previously with Councillor Frew and at Audit Committee. Given that we have a budget gap in the council's projections for next year, can the leader tell the council a little more about what she intends to do to make sure that transformation is at the heart of what this council does in terms of transforming our services and making sure that we can help to deliver services at the most efficient and most effective level and at the least cost to the taxpayer, because we have got a budget gap. Transformation is very important. I'd like to hear more about what the council is going to do about tackling that agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Before Councillor Campion, Councillor Mark Donnelly did indicate he wants to ask a question as well. So, Councillor Campion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Given the leader's emphasis on equality and diversity, will she join me in condemning Keir Starmer and other senior Labour politicians' transphobic comments and views, and agree with me that Newcastle City Council stands firm that trans women are women, trans men are men, and non-binary identities are valid. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Donnelly.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. And firstly, congratulations on your position. The Leaders' Report states a new vision for the city. Newcastle is a united city that is inclusive, proud and fair. We are committed to ensuring that everyone is valued, welcomed and empowered. With that said, how can the Leader of Council remain silent when at a recent governance review meeting the words residents know SHITE was said? Not only was this extremely offensive to residents, but it is a stain on democracy, made worse by the Leader of Council and the Chief Executive remaining silent and not responding or condemning such disrespectful remarks to our residents, Lord Mayor.
Right, okay.
Will we eventually hear from the Leader with regards to their remarks?
You've had your chance.
That's fine. I do appreciate that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Kilgour, would you like to answer the questions?
Well, I made that 17 questions, Lord Mayor, and I've got less than 4 minutes, so I'm clearly not going to get through them all. Those questions that I am unable to answer, I will ensure a written answer is circulated to all members. Councillor Mitchell asked about effective statutory services and why it's included. It is the very core of what we do. Our statutory services are an area of huge importance to our residents. They are fundamental to most people in our city's lives, and that is why it is included, to reflect the importance of it. Councillor Higgins asked about transport. Did I agree with him? Of course, I always agree with you, Rob. We know that an effective public transport system is a vital component of a successful economy. It connects people to employment sites, to educational opportunities, to services, and it connects our communities. We want public transport to take our residents to school, workshops, communities, and essential services in Newcastle. And we need it to be a trusted and reliable part of everyday life for our residents, particularly in the Outer West and West End, because our city thrives and residents are well. So we will continue to work with our combined authority colleagues to lobby government to increase investment even further. Councillor Byrne asked about some sort of secret funding agreement. I don't know what you're referring to. If you could send me the details, I will look into it. Councillor Penny Evans asked about our net zero progress. And she's right to highlight how well we're doing, and I'd like to thank her for the work that she led in this area. The expansion of our food waste trial to 5,000 households in the city has been really well received. Processing waste into fertiliser or green energy and biofuel to power our homes. Even in such a small trial area of the city, we've still managed to collect over 300 tonnes of food waste, showing the huge difference it can make. Our Flex Collect schemes now reaching 35,000 homes. And we've collected over 51,000 bags of flexible plastic packaging and recycling, retrofitting Shieldfield Tower blocks and Heaton Park Tower block. It's over 350 flats, including external wall insulation, new windows, and air source heat pump heating and hot water systems have all been installed. These improvements reduce energy bills to residents, improve health and well-being, reducing our emissions. Our home energy advice page is a free home improvement tool for residents, offering personalised advice and home visits, widening access to these important services. We've launched Blue Green Newcastle, which is a really important initiative to improve our resilience to climate events and boost biodiversity, making sure that we're able to deal with those 1 in 50 year or 100 year events. And we're continuing to deliver our heat decarbonisation plan for 20 city sites, including leisure centres, cultural sites, social care properties and schools. I'm very quickly running out of time, Lord Mayor. Councillor Huddart asked about fourth yards. Clearly that level of detail will be decided via the master plan, but I'm sure there will be a mixture of property types. And when she refers to the council housing list, clearly all of the properties on fourth yards will not be council housing. So while some of those affordable housing or social housing units might contribute to it. The whole site would not be social housing. I've lost all my notes now. So, with the remaining few seconds, I will get answers to everybody else. I'll get written questions, written answers sent out. And with my final seconds, Lord Mayor, I'd just like to sum up. As I've said before, it is the honour of my life to lead this council. I am determined that everything we do as a council will have residents at its heart. I welcome the outline announcements in the spending review today and await further detail about what it means for Newcastle specifically. I'd like to thank Cabinet members for all their hard work and reiterate my gratitude to all of our staff who work very hard for our residents day in and day out. I look forward to working with you all across the chamber to deliver for the people of Newcastle in the coming months. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kilgallen.
Can I raise a point of order, please?
Could you tell me which point of standing orders?
If the council, the council leader doesn't know what I was talking about, very difficult for to answer my question. So how do I make that clear?
Can I suggest you write to Councillor Kilgallen?
So I have to
It's
put it in
It's
writing.
not a point of order. Can I ask you to write to Councillor Kilgallen?
Write to Councillor Kilgour and explain my question.
Yeah. Okay.
She chose not to answer tonight.
Thank you. Does Council agree to receive the report? Yes?
No.
No? We need a vote on it? Okay. Do we have a vote on it? Bear with us a second. Okay. I'm told the report is only for information. Council does not have a chance to vote on it. Okay. Thank you very much. Number 10, appointments. Can I call on Councillor Ellis to move the appointments, seconded by Councillor Powers? It's not on. Oh, it's on. Right.
Move the appointments as set out in the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Powers? Okay, does Council agree the appointments? Thank you very much. Number 11, notice of motion, send funding crisis. I'll call on Councillor Ferguson to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Christine Morrison. Councillor Ferguson.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, you've taken me ever so slightly by surprise. Bear with me 2 seconds. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I did overhear a brief comment there that we've been waiting 6 months for this and how could it possibly take me by surprise. Well, the honest truth of the matter is I genuinely didn't expect that the Labour Group would ever want us to talk about this particular issue because we stand here having waited for months to raise what we know is an incredibly serious issue for many young people in this city and across the country, which this government has so far failed to materially address. Now, when I've brought this up before, the idea that I've been given is that, oh, well, you know, they needed time to have a wee think about it. They needed to get their heads round the sheer pressure that the high needs block of the dedicated schools grant is under. But it isn't new. It hasn't just suddenly started happening this summer. It's been going on for several years, and it's getting worse. And for a government to come in telling us that they are ready with a plan for change to face down all of these challenges that the country has, and then look at one of the most pressing things affecting some of our most vulnerable young people and say, we've got to have a wee think about that, simply isn't good enough. As the motion notes, the National Audit Office knows full well that the system for supporting children with special educational needs and disabilities is financially unsustainable. We desperately need to look at how our young people are supported so that they can grow and thrive in an education system that caters for their needs, no matter what they are. A statutory override was put in place in 2020 by the previous Conservative government that allowed local councils who were not able to control the costs sufficiently to run up a deficit on their reserves off the books. Now, thankfully, Newcastle has not been in that position as quickly as many other local authorities, and I think that is to be welcomed, and I think that is right to acknowledge as one of the successes of the local approach. But all local authorities face this challenge. It isn't going away, and the statutory override isn't a solution. It's a mechanism by which we push the solution into the future. And we say, it's okay, we'll think about it tomorrow. Now, when I looked at the spending review today, and I've already mentioned this, I could see some reference to SEND transformation funding, but not before 2026-27. This problem is here now. It is happening right here in front of us, and we desperately need to provide the funding, the mechanisms and the policy that ensure that our young people can grow and thrive, as I said. So I think the motion sets out a really straightforward and simple solution. We write to the Secretary of State for Education and Schools Minister, might be familiar with Newcastle, you never know, and call for a rapid acceleration of the plans to address the SEND crisis. We make sure that the statutory override is not pulled away imminently, but that a clear plan for removing it and dealing with the capital deficit that's been drawn up is finally dealt with. And back, Lib Dem calls for the creation of a national champion for SEND, a £300 million funding boost, and making it clear that this Council's view is that that is one of the ways that we can deal with this. This challenge, colleagues, is in front of us right now, but it will affect young people for years to come. We cannot wait. We must act now.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Seconded by Councillor Christine Morrissey. Can Councillor Walker stand ready to propose the amendment?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to start off with a quote from the post-16 Transport and Travel Support to Education and Training Statutory Guidance for local authorities. Young people are now required to stay in education or training until their 18th birthday. Local authorities are responsible for promoting the effective participation in education and training of young people, and every young person aged 16 or 17 should be offered a suitable place in education or training. Councillor Mains earlier on spoke about that interaction with people, and I'd like to read a short extract from 2 letters I received from residents when the change to post-16 SEND transport was announced last November. So you're right, it was a long time ago. I was given permission to use names, but I actually have chosen not to. The first one. I'm writing to you on behalf of many families who have SEN children and are worried about their future. We are trying our best with the help of their educational facilities to help them gain the skills they need to lead independent and fulfilling lives. The recent consultation being run by the Council to scrap post-16 SEND transport is a massive blow to the process. We feel it is unfair and unjust and discriminates against children with SEN. These children are vulnerable, many with learning disabilities, and will not be able to travel to schools and colleges by themselves safely. Removing the council's duty to provide transport will put their futures in jeopardy and will increase the financial pressure on SEND families, who are already under a lot of pressure from the cost of living crisis. We request the council revise their decision and provide reassurances that they will continue to support travel for these children so their future is sound and they can learn to become valuable members of society. Second one is, my son loves maths and music and Thomas the Tank Engine. He's currently at Thomas Bewick School, which he's attended since he was 3 years old. Along with his friends, this has been an important, fundamental part of his life, and we consider this amazing school as an extended family. This year, which was September 24, we've been introduced to life in post-16. The life skills and qualifications they offer are essential to living a productive and fulfilling life. We often, over the last 15 years, have heard in politics the term difficult decisions. This is an example and a reality of our difficult decisions, choosing whether our children continue in education or we continue in employment and take siblings to their schools in an entirely different catchment area. Personally, I have the prospect of taking a child with autism on a bus journey 45 minutes each way. We live almost 8 miles away from school. He doesn't cope well on public transport, will result in me being on buses 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week, 16 hours a month, and expected to continue my job 9 to 4 p.m, which won't be possible, plunging us into poverty.
Can you sum up, please?
I am really going to sum up now, yes. So recently there's been an emphasis on the importance of all children having access to education until they're 18 years old. So can I urge you all to support Councillor Ferguson's motion so that we can get some extra funding and provide some of the most vulnerable young people in our city with the support that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have an amendment. Can I call on Councillor Walker to move the amendment with Councillor Story seconding?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. For all of us in this chamber, we've seen the consequences of chronic underfunding in our public services in this country and the desire to thrust responsibilities from central government onto local authorities, but without the actual resources to carry out these adequately or effectively. We've also seen claims in recent years of record investment into things, but investment alone is not the answer. We've seen that in the NHS. There needs to be a long-term solution that secures the future of our services into the modern world. Funding and investment is massively important in any area. But a system that was built and still operating on a model from 20 plus years ago, not addressing the actual needs of our children and young people, is not actually investing in them or their future. We're failing them. I feel fortunate to live in a time where we've moved on from the stigma that was attached to some children and young people for being disruptive, or not wanting to learn, or being naughty. We now understand the complexities of behaviours better than ever before. There is now a much better understanding that some children and young people need that extra support. Sadly, though, too often, this is not able to be accessed anywhere near quickly enough. The problem with SEND provision in this country is profound, and deeper than just funding local authorities to process educational healthcare plans, although funding is welcome. This all starts with getting the help that is required in the first instance. Diagnoses of ASD and ADHD, for example, is an arduous and tiring process before parents even get close to securing an AHCP. Reform needs to be in tandem with reform of our NHS to allow for faster diagnosing and access for early help and intervention. Make no mistake, SEND provision is at crisis point. As the motion highlights, nationally, only just over half of the HCPs are issued within the 20-week target. In Newcastle, that figure is quite frankly shocking. This highlights the scale of the challenge and how demand has increased in recent years and is only going to continue, but resources haven't increased. This subject, colleagues, is deeply, deeply personal for me. As the parent of a child with additional needs, having gone through the system to get a diagnosis of ASD, which has been a battle that, if not for the tenacity of my wife, I fear we'd still be fighting. I know firsthand how important it is to have a system in place that gives SEND children the same chances and the best start in life as possible. Had James gone to school when I did, he would have never have gotten the same support he gets now. As I said earlier, he'd been branded as disruptive, uninterested, or, which happened to so many children in my generation, forgotten. We're very fortunate that his school has been able to provide additional help and support to us as parents. But not every school has been able to. Not every parent has the time or know-how or sheer stubbornness at times that my wife has to be able to get that support. We now have to wait for an HCP to be finalised, which after the challenge over the last several years just to get this point is exhausting. It's unfair on parents that these 20-week targets aren't being met, and I welcome the news in the budget last week, or last month, I can't remember when it was now, the budget, of an additional £1 billion in funding for high needs, but this needs to be backed up by meaningful reform of the system, with a much more focused approach that allows us to get hold of this situation and protect future generations. This can only be done if government ministers meet with local authorities and truly understand the challenges we are facing. I urge members to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Walker. Councillor Story to second.
Councillor Ferguson, thank you for bringing the motion, and I want to also thank you for acknowledging our good stewardship. I'm very, very proud of the work that staff here undertake, leading the way around SEND, and thank you for acknowledging that. I agree with much of what you've said, and I totally agree that we're facing one of the most pressing issues in our educational system, the SEND funding crisis. For the past 14 years, local authorities, schools, and most importantly, our children have faced the consequences of an unsustainable funding model. And this has left SEND services across the country struggling to meet the rising number of complexity of needs of some of our most vulnerable children and young people. And the system is absolutely in desperate need of reform. In 2023, the Local Government Association warned that 40% of all councils may face bankruptcy by the end of March 26 due to overspending on the high needs block of this dedicated schools grant. And this was despite over £10.7 billion being invested into our SEND system over the past decade. And this isn't just a number, this is a direct reflection of the poor management from the previous government and the failure to address the real issues that are at the heart of this crisis. There are now an estimated 1.7 million children in schools across England, and an increase in demand that places immense pressure on all local authorities. The rise highlights the need for councils to tackle the challenge head-on. Having anticipated these pressures at Newcastle, we proactively commissioned a piece of work within Power to ensure that we have a thorough and effective grasp on the situation and to understand the steps that we need to take to make lasting change. Based on the recommendations of this piece of work, we've allocated funding to deliver a comprehensive change programme, working with our stakeholders to shift practice, reduce escalation and focus on early intervention, and the project plan is being developed now. They're implementing targeted measures that have been proven to work, and we are taking those targeted measures to government now. We are urging the Secretary of State for Education and the Schools Minister to take this learning to a national level. We feel it's vital to expedite the reform process and provide long-term sustainable solutions to the SEND funding crisis. In the meantime, I've already done much of what you've suggested. I've lobbied for an extension of the current financial statutory override, which allows councils to spend beyond their allocated dedicated school grant in the best interests of children. And this is a step we do not take lightly. The policy introduced by the previous government was a last resort to tackle financial mismanagement. However, the funding model is fixed, and this extension is essential to keep the system running to ensure that children are properly supported in their education and development. Here in Newcastle, we've got lots of experienced staff working in schools. We are working with families, we are working with children, and I would ask you to consider supporting our motion, although I do agree with much of what you've said. I think the difference is I've really highlighted, Adam has really highlighted what we can do on a local level. Christine, I will send to you some information about SEND transport, because I know that is something that you've highlighted. I've recently met with families, and I'm really sorry I don't have the time to kind of go into that now, but I will send you some information about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the debate. Can I call on Councillor Tracy Mitchell, please? Can Councillor Barnett stand by?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. For anyone who does not know my background, I have worked in special education for over 27 years, so it's something I'm really, really passionate about. I have witnessed the constant battles families have to go through with the funding crisis, which have to go through with the funding crisis it's caused. This has just added to the constant stress families are already under. It's a real hindrance to families with social care and healthcare separate, which in turn becomes an extra battle of which department will pay for therapies and education needed. And what is forgotten is the young person. It's unacceptable and a failure that families and young people are waiting months or even over a year for their ECHP. If families do not agree with the plan, it is then another long process to the appeals system, something else that makes families really stressed. The ECHP is a legal document which is a passport for every young person to help them achieve their full potential. But yet in Newcastle, the wait for the ECHP is for far too long, and often the people who make the decisions on what should be included have not met the individual person, which means the child loses out on therapies which are vital to their education. That's why I do welcome a national champion who understands the complexities of people with disabilities and additional needs. We talk a lot in this chamber about equality, and the ECHP is a document that gives each individual young person the care needed and their individual needs to thrive and become the best they can. But here we are failing these amazing people. The other week I was talking about my work and I described myself as just a carer, and I was corrected that I was not just a carer. And no, I'm not, but politicians make us feel undervalued, and in turn that means the individuals we care for also feel undervalued. I love my job and my life has been enriched due to the amazing students I've been lucky to teach. The ECHP is vital, and begging for money is so wrong when this should be seen as a basic right, just as we legally need to educate all children up to 18. We must do better and urge the government to fund social care properly, so we see that every child matters. And I do agree reform really does need to happen. If we cannot give the correct support to the lives of the most vulnerable, then what does that say about us as a society? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be calling Councillor Taylor next. Councillor Barnett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It feels only right to talk about the discerned crisis as a disabled individual and someone who has worked in the sector in the past life. The situation in the sector is not ideal. We have seen a growing demand and increased costs. Many people are working exceptionally hard, whether it be directly as council staff or those not directly employed, such as taxi drivers and those working as SEND support in our schools. We need a new system that works for everybody to tackle the range of issues within the sector, whether that be early intervention, nursery education, to transitions from adult to children to adult services. The council has a strong duty of care to these young people and their families, and we should always strive to do our best. This is a huge and complex topic with no easy answer, and issues that go beyond just funding. We need to create a culture that works for all, those within the system and those who are just entering it. We need the young people and their families to be given their voices back so they can thrive at school and outside to achieve their goals and future aspirations. As councillors, we have seen how the SEND crisis has affected our communities and our residents. And it's an area we need to work together so we can ensure that children in Newcastle get the support they need. We as corporate parents as well need to think of that. And we need to think about how we work together and make sure that systems are working as they should be rather than just being roadblocks. It's this integrated system that we need to work, and I'm really proud of how much we've done at a local level to make sure that where there are barriers, we're making them as easy and accessible to residents as possible. I'm hopeful that we can create something new and positive, but we need to do all our part together to create a system that works for all and to tackle this. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but I know we have got the political will, aspirations on both sides of this chamber to achieve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wong. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Tackling the SEND funding crisis must be a priority for the current government. Too many children with special educational needs and disabilities go undetected for too long, and they are left to struggle because the necessary support isn't in place. 1 in 6 school pupils in England are identified as having special educational needs, and children with SEND are more than 3 times as likely to be suspended from school and more than 4 times as likely to be permanently excluded. And we know that special educational needs and disabilities are significantly more prevalent among children from disadvantaged backgrounds and among certain ethnic groups. In government, Liberal Democrats comprehensively reformed the law governing provision for children with SEND by introducing education, health and care plans and extending support to age 25. The aim of these reforms was to give young people and their families more control over how their needs are met and getting education, health and social care services working together. However, the Conservative government woefully underfunded local authorities, meaning that the promise of these reforms has not been delivered. Instead, Conservative cuts to schools and council budgets meant that many parents and carers couldn't get their children the support they deserve. The Labour government has to put this right. With schools being forced to cut back on support staff to manage rising costs, more and more families are having to turn to councils to get the help they need. More than 500,000 children and young people now have EHC plans, including 21,000 under 5s, and those numbers have been rising by around 10% each year. By law, the whole process from a request for an assessment of a child's EHC needs to them being issued with a plan must take no more than 20 weeks. But we know for most councils, including Newcastle, this is currently very difficult to achieve. Yet identifying a child's SEND as early in their life as possible is critically important. It enables them to get the support they need from a young age, and this can help to prevent some children from developing more complex needs later on, reducing demand for SEND provision in the long run. Of course, today's announcement of extra funding for the core schools budget is very welcome, but we need to know how much of this money will be available to support children with special needs and whether it is sufficient to make sure that the reforms introduced by the Liberal Democrats in government can be fully implemented. Another problem is the astronomical costs of providing support for children with the highest needs. It is unfair that these costs fall on councils. So as well as additional funding, Liberal Democrats are also calling for a national body for SEND to fund support for children with the most complex needs. This new national body would pay any costs above £25,000 a year, with funding determined by the child's current needs and not by historic council spend. It would also act as a champion for the child, promote inclusive practice and ensure that SEND funding is spent as effectively as possible to support the child. Lord Mayor, this is an excellent motion and I urge colleagues to support it. I do think the amendment weakens the motion, but I would be prepared to accept it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Can I call on Councillor Ferguson to reply to the debate, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to hear that there is a broad degree of consensus across the chamber that this is an incredibly significant matter and one that desperately needs addressing. I had some reservations about the amendment when I first read it, but particularly having listened to Councillor Story, I'm minded to see it very much as a friendly amendment, and I hope that this is one that we can speak with one voice on behalf of all of the young people that this affects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. So we'll have to go through the formalities. Is the amendment agreed? Agreed. Is the motion agreed as amended? Agreed. Thank you very much. Number 12. Are you sure you want to do it this time, Councillor Burns?
Lord Mayor, I'd like to request that we suspend the guillotine to complete tonight's business, please.
Okay. Is that agreed? Agreed. No? Right, okay, we'll have to have a vote. Linda, can you start the go vote system, please? And as usual, once that's finished and Linda's closed it, we'll come to you who haven't been able to vote. Okay, oh, it's still going on, is it? Right, oh, no, still going, still going. Might have to get VA on this one. Okay. Are you happy for us to close that now, and then I'll go to the people who weren't able to vote? Have you got that, Linda? Yeah. Okay, for those of you who weren't able to vote electronically, can you please indicate if you wish to vote yes? Yeah, is that it? Okay, 2. Thank you very much. Would anybody like to vote no? 2, 3. Oh, sorry, is anybody abstaining? Sorry. Right, it was a tied vote, so we have a Lord Mayor's casting vote. Can I point out that the person in the Liberal Democrat group who first suggested we do this was me? So let's stay to the end of the agenda then. Let's carry on. Number 12, notice of motion, fully funded youth service. I call on Councillor Austin to move the motion, to be seconded by Councillor Christine Morrissey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very privileged to have spent the last decade working as a youth worker in the North East charitable sector, and I've witnessed the incredible impact youth work can have on young people and the deep harm caused when those services are taken away. Over the past decade, more than 1,000 youth clubs have closed and over £1 billion has been stripped from local authority budgets for youth services. These cuts have had countless young people. These cuts have left young people with countless young people without safe spaces, without guidance and without opportunities to thrive. Here in Newcastle, the impact is clear. We are witnessing rising levels of mental health challenges. Social isolation is increasing and opportunities for young people to succeed are shrinking. And shockingly, a recent report shows that young people's life chances in Newcastle are ranked one of the worst in England. And this is an urgent call for action. However, in Newcastle, we do some good stuff with youth work. We've got the Newcastle Youth Fund, which is doing amazing work to support young people across the city. In this year alone, over £500,000 going to be funded to local youth organisations. And like I say, this is having a massive impact on the young people that it does work, but it's not reaching all young people. Much of the city's youth provision is delivered by the charitable sector, which does an incredible job supporting our young people. But these organisations are being stretched to the limit, and in many cases to the breaking point. In a recent North East Youth Alliance survey of over 100 youth organisations in the North East, claims that it states that 39% of these youth charities do not have secure budgets for this financial year. 67% forecast a financial shortfall. 56% anticipate reducing or closing services. 47% expect cuts to staff, and 26% of these youth organisations have no reserves at all. These organisations stepping in to provide support where statutory services have been hollowed out is not sustainable. These groups are doing amazing work where the council has a statutory duty to provide, and these organisations do deserve better. This is why this motion sets out clear and urgent steps to address the issues. By investing in our young people, investing in youth work isn't just about solving problems, it's about creating opportunities. Youth services build confidence, resilience and a sense of belonging, and they reduce crime. improves educational outcomes, supports mental health and strengthens our community. While I do welcome some recent signs of progress from government, including £145 million of youth funding packages and the talk of a national youth strategy, this simply isn't enough. The funding is short-term, fragmented and nowhere near the level required to meet the scale of the need. What we need is a guaranteed statutory investment, not competitive grants that leave organisations guessing year to year. This motion asks for more. It calls for a clear and sustained commitment to youth services in Newcastle, because our young people do deserve better. Let's make Newcastle a leader in youth work provision. Let's show our young people that we believe in them and that we see their potential and that we are prepared to invest in their futures. To all the youth workers, volunteers and community organisations across our city who support young people day in and day out, thank you. And I will be supporting Labour's amendment on this budget as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morrissey, for second.
UK Youth is calling for more investment into youth work to set people up for life. After research shows funding is falling by hundreds of millions of pounds in 10 years and putting young people at severe risk. It's widely recognised that youth work has a positive impact on young people's health, well-being and employability, with the positive effects lasting well into adulthood and setting them up for life. Research has followed participants for decades and found young people who received youth work support as teenagers were happier, healthier, wealthier and more active in their communities as adults compared with those who didn't. This research shows the positive impacts of youth work are experienced across diverse groups of young people, regardless of gender, ethnicity or socio-economic status, and demonstrates the importance of unlocking youth work for all young people. At a time when young people are facing severe challenges to their mental health, employment prospects, hope for the future, even physical safety, this research is further evidence we need to substantially increase availability of youth services. Youth work is a proven solution to the challenges that young people are facing, but it's being ignored. We cannot afford not to invest in young people. When preventative support is taken away, young people are more vulnerable to crime and other antisocial behaviours. Reductions in local youth provision are associated with a rise in certain types of crime and antisocial behaviour, including increases in the number of children cautioned or sentenced, the proportion of young people who reoffend, things like bike thefts, weapon possession, offences and shoplifting. Labour's manifesto pledged almost £300 million a year to deliver young future hubs, increase youth workers in A&Es, pupil referral units and provide early support for mental health in school. Youth workers will also play a vital role in implementing Labour's guarantee of meaningful work experience access to training, apprenticeships and other employment support. The government's youth guarantee promises all young people safe places to go, meaningful things to do and experiences to develop and give back to their communities. We need more investment to make this guarantee a reality, and we need this council to deliver. Following additional funding from today's spending review, I look forward to seeing work increase with local youth organisations, schools and community partners to identify gaps in current provision and ensure funding is targeted effectively. One of the first things we could do is look for a home for our youth council and youth panel. We have a thriving group of young people who are already engaged with politics and are the gatekeepers of what young people actually need. This group require a venue which is suitable for their needs and a direct link into the very services we want their support in developing. I urge you all to support Councillor Austin's motion so we can start providing our young people with the support they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Can I call on Councillor Story to move an amendment to be seconded by Councillor Mains?
Thank you, Councillor Austin, for your motion, and I hope that you will see this as a friendly amendment. Really, I wanted to take the opportunity to address some of the issues that are happening locally, and that's why I've brought the amendments. So across the country and here in Newcastle, you're absolutely right, the youth sector faces unprecedented financial and workforce challenges. Nationally, cuts to the youth service over recent decades have resulted in a real loss of £1 billion from local authority spending. But here in Newcastle, we believe in the power of youth services to change lives. We recognise the commitment, hard work and dedication of the sector, much of it in the charitable and voluntary sector, as it deals with increasing demand for services and ever more complex situations. In Newcastle, I'm really proud that we've developed the Newcastle Youth Fund, which seeks to support community projects that support and enrich the lives of young people. It draws together council funding, and we were able to get match funding from the National Lottery to invest approximately £500,000 each year to much needed community youth projects. At a time where many other local authorities have seen reduced funding and losses of projects, I'm pleased to say that in 24-25 we supported 21 projects, and this will increase to 24 projects in 25-26, and we're currently working up plans to extend this. Alongside these projects, it's also right that we listen to the views of young people to ensure that the projects are the ones that they're most valuable and are available to them and their communities. And this is an important part of the Newcastle Youth Fund, and it's why our youth panel is essential. It's made up of 25 young people, with many more involved as junior leaders during the application process. They're absolutely essential to that. But there's only so much we can do as a council, you're absolutely right, and it's vital that we seek funding from central government, public sector bodies and charities. It's essential that we establish and sustain fully funded youth services. We know that the absence of sufficient youth services has had a lasting impact on our children, their mental health, struggles with social isolation, fewer employment opportunities, and an increasing risk of antisocial behaviour. We know that our approach in Newcastle is one that other areas are keen to learn from, and I will write to the Secretary of State for DCMS and other relevant government ministers to highlight the excellent work that we're doing in Newcastle and urge as you ask for increased investment in youth services in the city. In the meantime, we're going to continue to work with local youth organisations, schools, community partners to identify gaps in current provision to ensure that funding is effectively targeted, and we continue to seek additional funding from our partners. I started off my career as a youth worker. It's something that I feel very, very passionately about. I know there are other youth workers who are in the chamber tonight, or people who started their careers out there. It's an amazing thing to do, and I absolutely want to ensure that we continue to identify areas of opportunity and improve our offer for children and young people. Sorry, Oh, right, sorry. I'll end it there, but thank you very much for the motion.
Thank you very much. Can I remind people to put their phones on silent? Thank you. Councillor Mains.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I've already had a chat with Rob. She was a youth worker and used to be the principal youth officer for North Tyneside Council, and I was telling him inevitably at that time we used to have about 800 workers because we used to do play provision, we used to do kids club, the Bee was also part of the teams, and those were the heydays of youth work with detached teams on metro systems and everything. It's absolutely disgraceful how it has been torn apart over the years, and I think we do a good job in Newcastle, but I'm sure with the support of everybody else we can do a lot better as well. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mains. Councillor Higgins has asked to speak.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I think I'm right in saying that the amendment's been accepted as a friendly amendment, which means probably I've got to rethink some of my comments, because I was going to take the Liberal Democrats down memory lane in the years of the coalition government and the cuts to youth services, but I'll resist the temptation to do that.
You don't have to speak if you don't want to, Councillor Higgins.
Sorry?
You don't have to speak if you don't want to.
Lord Mayor. I'll remember that. There's loyalty for you. Thank you very much indeed. No, what I'd like to do is I would like to... Is that a sign of things to come? What I'd like to do, actually, is I'd like to pick up on a bit in the amendment about the importance of funding the voluntary sector. Because during my many years as a councillor down in Scotswood and Benwell, I've seen some remarkable examples of youth work in the voluntary sector. I just want to do a name check, actually, on somebody called Andy Gibson. Andy Gibson got an MBE, and he set up the Scotswood Youth Strategy. And Andy was what I would call a larger-than-life character. And he was an amazing influence on youth work in the West End and around Scotswood. The money that he raised, the projects that he set up, he's so fondly remembered down there. I remember Andy, and he worked with some of the most marginalised young people in the area and did some brilliant work. Children that were excluded from school, children that were seen as marginalised in society. So I just want to mention Andy because we didn't always see eye to eye. He thought I was a bit right-wing, which was amazing really, but just absolutely fantastic. And I'm really pleased that some of that work's being carried on now. I see examples. I'm bound to mention the Scotswood Community Garden, of course. They do some brilliant work. They have detached youth workers, and they do some brilliant work. Steve Best at Blue Star Football Club, working with dozens and dozens of kids during the school holidays, does some fantastic work down there. Surprisingly, the Ballylorent, I'm really proud of their presence at the John Marley Centre and the work that they're doing with young people around Scotswood, would you believe, involved in ballet dancing and ballet classes and dance classes, is just absolutely brilliant. And there was mention there of the Youth Fund, and I have worked very closely with Joe Taylor, who sort of pulls that together, coordinates that. And it was fantastic when I had the privilege as Lord Mayor, amongst the many young people that I met, to meet the young people from the youth panel. They're just so enthusiastic, so clued up about what was so important. Felt it was so important also to go out and visit the projects that they'd funded. They actually came down to the Ballylorent to see the work that was going on there, and it was absolutely marvellous. So, we've also got Patchwork Project and many other projects, Granger Park Boxing Club, that are absolutely fantastic. And what I found over the years is that all too often, spending on facilities for young people is not always seen as a political priority. You know, the thing about, oh, young people don't vote, so, you know, we're not going to worry too much about them. But I'm delighted now that young people, through the Youth Parliament, through things like the Youth Panel, through visiting the Council Chamber, you know that we had many visits to the Council Chamber, Lord Mayor, during my time of office is so important. So I would just like to support the amendment. I'm pleased it's been accepted as a friendly amendment. I think it's a very important topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. Would you like to sum up? No? No summing up? Great. So agree the amendment? And agree the motion as amended? Right, thank you very much. We now move on to item 13, notice of motion sought social care now. It's difficult to say. I'll call on Councillor Taylor to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very glad to be able to, at last, propose this motion to Council. However, it is depressing to have to bring another motion to Council calling on the Government to rapidly bring forward proposals for a long-term solution for social care. Looking back, we debated this issue in 2012, when I talked about a motion from the Local Government Association which said that doing nothing is not an option, and the LGA resolved to work with both government and opposition in ensuring there was cross-party support to carry reform through. Nothing happened. At that time, Age Concerned had also published a report called Care in Crisis, which stated that the current adult social care system in England was in financial crisis and needed urgent, lasting reform. The report stated that the system is confusing, unfair and unsustainable, and that it does not always provide support for those that need it. The report also pointed out that it was impossible to plan ahead to meet future care needs, that people did not know what to expect from the state or understand what they are personally responsible for. And with potentially unlimited costs, people could often find themselves having to sell their homes to afford care payments. Without any idea of how much it would cost, no one was able to plan ahead. Again, nothing changed. In my 2012 speech, I said that social care in England is currently underfunded and complex. Yet we know that the need for care will only increase as people live longer and need more support. I said that greater public debate, awareness and funding was needed to address these issues, that the social care system must clearly state what people are entitled to based on needs rather than their postcode, and that it is crucial that people should have a clear understanding of what they can expect as part of healthcare, free at the point of delivery, and what they will be expected to pay for at the time of receipt as part of social care. That's all just as relevant and true now as it was then. But here we are, 13 years later, with very little progress, and all the Labour government can offer is yet another commission which won't report back with long-term recommendations for the transformation of adult social care until 2028. That's going to be just before the next general election, with too little time to implement the changes and a risk that they will be dropped by the next government. It's totally unacceptable. Liberal Democrats have been calling for many years for cross-party talk to resolve the crisis and stop treating long-term care as a political football, because we know now what is needed. The issue of paying for social care has already been considered in depth by the Royal Commission in 1999, the Independent King's Fund in 2005, and the Dilnot Commission in 2011. Some important changes have been made, but the key features of the means test remain broadly unchanged since 1997, while the issue of very high lifetime social care bills remains unresolved. The Commission on the Funding of Care and Support, chaired by Andrew Dilnot in 2011, recommended a £35,000 lifetime cap for paying for social care for over 65s and a more generous means test. And from July 2012 to February 2015, the government developed its response, and that included a £72,000 lifetime cap on social care bills for all adults over 25, a more generous means test with reforms to be introduced in April 2016, universal deferred payment arrangements, and a new national level of care and support needs to make care and support more consistent across the country. At last, it seemed that progress was being made. Unfortunately, in 2015, the new Conservative government announced the postponement of the introduction of the reforms, including the cap and more generous means test, until April 2020. Since then, it's been repeatedly deferred. Since the announcement by the Labour government of the new Commission, Sir Andrew Dilnot has said that Downing Street's plan to spend 3 years preparing a blueprint to overhaul England's social care is inappropriate given the urgency of the crisis facing frail, ill and disabled people, and that with clear backing from Keir Starmer, new plans could feasibly be in place by the end of 2025. He also said that the care challenges facing families and local authorities were simply unacceptable in a society with the levels of income and wealth that we have. Others have supported his call to accelerate the timing. Sarah Woolnough, Chief Executive of the King's Fund, has said that the timetable to report by 2028 was far too long to wait for people who need social care and their families. Hugh Alderwick, Director of Policy at the Health Foundation, has said that the options for reforming social care are well known, and what's needed now is political will and long-term investment to finally implement reform and improve the lives of millions of people and their carers. The new Commission must be an opportunity to deliver reform, not delay it. So I hope everyone will support this motion, unamended, to speed up the process with the aim of bringing proposals for long-term reform of social care to Parliament by the end of 2025. We can't afford to wait any longer.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Seconded by Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I welcome the opportunity to speak in support of Councillor Taylor's motion. We've been waiting for quite some time to get this motion debated, but it is an issue that is very, very important to everyone in the city. I hope across this chamber, I know that it is an issue that is very dear to the hearts of the Liberal Democrat side. It is something that we have been rightly championing for some time. There is a lot that needs to be done on this agenda, and we know that it has been talked about for a very long time in terms of this council's own corporate priorities, in talking about how we need to improve the integration of social care with local NHS provision. That is something that has been talked about for many years in this chamber, but not an awful lot of progress has actually been made. And there is much that needs to be done on that front. There is much that needs to be done in terms of supporting carers who are often facing considerable burdens and challenges in an impact on their own lives for the work that they are doing, unheralded and uncelebrated, but they are doing vital work in caring for their members of their own families in many cases. There is work to be done in terms of raising the need for a fairer deal for all carers, whether they are professional carers or whether they are family carers, to make sure that they are properly compensated and have proper carers allowance increase given to them. There is work that needs to be done to make sure as well that there is adequate supply of care workers. There are significant opportunities a need for carers in this city, and there is not always the availability of sufficient pool of entrants to the sector to make sure that they have the training and the support that they need to become the effective professional carers that they're capable of being. There is a lot to be done to work on that front, and I'm afraid to say that the government's, this government's and the previous government's policy on migration is not particularly conducive to meeting the care needs of an ageing population. There is a very clear need for more people to be entering the care sector as care workers, and we should be supporting them and enable them to do what they need to do on behalf of everyone in the city. So I support this particular motion. I particularly would like to support one particular campaigner in my community, in my ward in Manor Park, who has become an inspirational champion for kinship carers in this city. Janice is a remarkable person who has rightly helped to become nationally known for the work she's doing for that sector and for the work of kinship care. And I'm pleased to say she's been actually getting access to ministers and persuading them of the importance of the need to make sure that children's services departments and others recognise the vital role that kinship carers can play in looking after young people in particular. So Janice is a star. I'm proud that she's doing what she's doing in Newcastle, and I hope that the government will listen, and I hope this council will listen to what she's trying to do on behalf of all carers in the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stubb. There is an amendment on this. Can I call on Councillor Walker to move the amendment, to be seconded by Councillor Herridge?
Thank you again, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Taylor and Councillor Stone for bringing the original motion tonight, and for your words in discussing about this motion. Colleagues, I'm aware I may sound like a broken record here, but it will come as no shock to members tonight that I want reform of social care in this country. For too long, a subject that successive governments haven't even remotely tackled. I'm pleased to hear in today's spending review of £100 million investment in community health partnerships to support adults with complex needs through supporting vulnerable adults earlier, alongside an increase of over £4 billion in funding for adult social care in 28-29 compared to 25-26, including an increase to the NHS minimum contributions to the Better Care Fund. And this may come as a surprise to some members this evening. However, there are some things I do agree with my colleagues opposite of. The Dilnot report was widely welcomed at the time. However, inaction by the governments that followed, despite cross-party support, mean no proposals have ever been enacted. And I'm very pleased that this motion has been brought to Council tonight. However, where I do feel we have a slight disagreement on, I'm afraid, is on timescales. Social care is in vital need of reform, and if I may urge caution on setting a firm date to report before the end of the year. I want reform, yes, but I want long-term, long-lasting, meaningful reform. I don't just want another enactioned report or a watered-down proposals. I agree 2028 is too long to wait, so I urge the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care and Dame Louise Casey to thoroughly complete their findings, but report their recommendations as soon as possible. In addition to that, I call on the Secretary of State and Dame Louise Casey to not only visit Newcastle, but I also want to offer them our expertise and guidance to the Commission. Social care needs national reform, but it should be done with local voices. I urge members to support the amendment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second, Councillor Herridge.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wasn't actually going to speak tonight. I was just going to formally second it, but there is just a couple of things that I wanted to say. Firstly, I do absolutely agree that social care in this country needs reform, and it needs it as soon as possible. Again, as Councillor Walker has said, where we disagree on is timescale. Councillor Taylor might want the recommendations that back from 2012 enacted, but a lot of things have changed since 2012. Back in 2012, I was just starting university. I had a lot more hair and a lot less stomach. A lot of things have changed. We were in the EU back then. So I think it's right that we have this review now because the landscape has changed. And I would like it to report before 2028.
But if it does come to that, Councillor Taylor stated that she was concerned that it could be dropped by a future government, but one way she could avoid that is by voting for Labour in the next government.
Thank you, Councillor Herridge. Nobody's asked to speak, so Councillor Taylor, do you want to sum up? No? Right, excellent. We do have an amendment. Is the amendment agreed? No? Right, okay. We'll move to the vote on that then, please. Linda, can you start the vote? Go again. Here we go again. Is that it on the electronic voting? Okay, can you take a note of that and close it, Linda? Can I ask everyone who was unable to vote electronically, who was in favour of the amendment, please show now, please. 2. 3, yes. And those against the amendment, can you show now, please? 1. Okay, so in favour of the amendment is 30 and against the amendment is 29. So the amendment is carried. So is the motion as amended agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, Council. We now move on to item 14, notice of motion Councillors' allowances. I'll call on Councillor Mark Donnelly to move his motion to be seconded by Councillor Mark Mitchell. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is a very simple and clear motion. It asks that we adhere to the same rules as the public. It is never right or proper that in 2025 for elected members to vote themselves a pay rise. It is not a privilege that the public have. We need to reaffirm our commitment that politicians work to the same rules as everybody else, as faith and trust has been lost in recent years. To readdress the balance, this would reassure residents that we feel like them, that this is a practice that must and should change, and therefore we call on central government to update the rules. This motion does not require much debate or discussion. It is a practice which the public dislike, and it should have been changed some years ago. I hope this evening this will be supported across the chamber. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Mark Mitchell to second.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm sure many of you in the chamber had enough of hearing from me this evening, so I will just say very briefly that we support this motion, that if we are going to restore trust in local government, dealing with this issue of council allowances, which comes up year in, year out, needs to be addressed once and for all.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. We have an amendment. Could I call on Councillor Powers to move the amendment, seconded by Councillor Penny Evans?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think there's a sense of irony that if anyone's been following the news today, that sheep have seemed to learn how to fly and have got themselves stuck on a 2-storey building roof. Because I find myself saying these words for the first time, I think, in 15 years, that I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Donnelly and what he said in the meaning of this motion. And certainly that's what the amendment is trying to articulate. It's a friendly amendment. I hope you can see that. The purpose of the amendment is simply to address some inaccuracies that has the amendment. For example, MPs don't vote on their allowances and haven't, and that's exactly what Councillor Donnelly is calling for. And also to tidy up some of the language towards the end, where there's a resolution that isn't actually resolving something. It should belong more in the context of what the original motion is and goes on to add further action. So I hope Councillor Donnelly will see this as nothing more than a friendly amendment, that we just simply want to strengthen his argument, and I think we are united in the room that this way in which we look at council allowances and the way in which we approve council allowances isn't fit for purpose. It should be joined up across the whole, not across the whole region, but across nationally as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powers. Councillor Penny-Evans. Thank you very much. Councillor Ferguson, you've asked to speak. You're waving your right. Okay. In that case, we'll move to the vote. I don't know if Councillor Donnelly does say it's a friendly amendment or not. Is the amendment agreed? Yes? Right, okay. So is the motion as amended agreed? Thank you very much. See how friendly we are? We should work overtime more often. Next we have 15, notice of motion, concessionary travel at 60. I'll call on Councillor Mark Donnelly to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we are all united in this chamber in agreeing that it is not devolution or indeed equality to allow others to pay more for less and to wait longer for benefits which other parts of the country receive much earlier. Levelling up or levelling down, a region with long-standing and deep-seated historical issues of inequality. Whilst unemployment rate remains above the national average, salaries in the region persist to be amongst the lowest across the UK, and healthy life expectancy in the region remains the lowest in the UK. Official figures show that economic gap is still there, and unfortunately it's growing. But overall, a region with lower productivity has fewer well-paid jobs. Regional disparities are increasing faster than other European countries, meaning vast swathes of the UK are failing to share in the prosperity of London and the South East. And then, of course, Lord Mayor, we have the Barnett formula, which is often criticised for looking just at population size of an area rather than need, leading to varying levels of spending in different parts of the country. Public spending per head is as follows: Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and England, and somewhere in that is the North East. What's Scotland's view is to allow people improved access to services, facilities and social networks, promoting social inclusion of the age of 60 years. Concessions apply to buses, trains, ferries and some coach services. And what about Wales? Concessionary travel begins on your 60th birthday. In Northern Ireland, the concessionary fare scheme was established to promote accessible public transport for members of the community who are most at risk of social exclusion through undiscounted fares. And meanwhile, Lord Mayor, back at home, you have to become 66 to receive the concessionary pass. There is a cost, of course, to the Metro, which is £12 for the gold card. And yes, this is less than all of the other schemes. So the question we have to ask ourselves, and that we often talk about, which is the north-south divide. Here, in reality, we have a north-north divide between us and Scotland. We have per head of population less spend than Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and yet we have to justify why our residents have to wait 6 years longer to receive the same benefits of the other devolved nations. Why would it ever be acceptable to deny improved access to services, facilities, social networks and promoting social inclusion here in the North East? This injustice needs to be corrected by government. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. Seconded by Councillor Hunter.
Lord Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to second this motion and urge everyone to support it. Some 19 years ago, when I was 60, I retired. I planned my retirement, and when I looked around, I seen as many men and women out of work, looking for work, and they couldn't afford to get on a bus, never mind a train or anything else. We need to help these people. These people are thrown on the scrap heap by employers in this region, and there'd be no help whatsoever. If we give them the right to travel at 60, they may get out and get a job. I eventually got another job. Not that I needed to work, and that job's in here tonight. And that's where I ended up. And I urge everybody to support this. The only time I ever got a concessionary pass was on a railway, and that was on a troop train, where I slept on a carriage floor with a kit bag. That's the only concessionary I ever got. The other thing I'd like to fetch up as well, and that is travelling from Scotland to England or to Wales. You cross the border and you're paying full price at 60 for your bus fare over there. Mind it, this works the same both ways. What I would like to see is that go, and we travel on each in every country on the UK. It says we're a United Kingdom. We are not united at all. Not when we can't travel between countries such as Wales, Scotland and Ireland. We need to have this concessionary in place and stop all this problems from people travelling. There's only one bus that I know would allow you to travel from England to Scotland. Whether it's still working or not, I don't know, and that was from Eyemouth to Berwick, and from Berwick to Eyemouth. It was the only one that will accept an English bus pass. Everywhere else, you had to pay full price. I would like to see that stop as well. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hunter. We have an amendment to be proposed by Councillor Sayfian and seconded by Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to move the amendment to this motion. First of all, I would like to thank Councillor Donnelly for bringing this important issue forward. We agree with the heart of the motion that access to concessionary travel from the age of 60 should be fair and consistent across the country. The current position where residents in some regions benefit while others have to wait until 66 is clearly unfair. I want to remind that this is a friendly amendment. It keeps the central call to action, urging the government to extend the national concessionary travel scheme to everyone over 60 in England outside of London. What we have added in is some context that reflects the progress already being made locally. The North East Mayor is moving ahead with best franchising, which will give us greater control over routes, fares and reliability. And we have secured 1.89 billion in transport investment to upgrade infrastructure and make public transport more accessible. We also acknowledge that many over 60s are still in work or volunteering roles, but that improving access to affordable travel still has a wider benefit for flexibility, well-being and public health. So we are not changing the core of the motion. We are simply recognizing the work already underway here in the region and showing that we are not waiting for national change to start making a difference locally. I hope colleagues will support the amendment in that spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Savior. Second, Councillor Higgins.
Yes, I second the motion, Lord Mayor, and in view of the lateness of the hour, I think I'll resist the urge to speak. We should actually please you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Higgins. I'm always happy to hear you speak. I have Councillor Ferguson here, who's down to speak. Yes? All right. Beginning to regret my decision now.
Lord Mayor, I'll keep it brief. I had a deep personal reservation about the wording of both the motion and the amendment, but thankfully Councillor Donnelly has snatched victory from the jaws of defeat in terms of my personal view on this, because he has acknowledged that Northern Ireland also offers concessionary travel. Let's not forget the entirety of the United Kingdom, please. Thank you.
That's everyone. Councillor Donnelly, you have a right to reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sadly, many politicians at Westminster fail to point out on a map where the North East actually is, often making reference to the Midlands. We are often a second thought, whether it be HS2 or dualling the A1. And rightly, some of the wrongs and inequalities need to start now. Councillor Higgins can probably recall, both him and I have mentioned on many occasions, why the Metro doesn't come to the Outer West. And of course, what do I have here? The old famous Project Orpheus. And of course, the document is dated that now in 2025, we have the extension to the Outer West. It's not in the form of the Metro, it's the new trams. But unfortunately, that was never delivered. And we often hear with regards to Manchester and their improvements, and we often hear about Leeds, but we don't hear about the North East. So, Lord Mayor, we are the United Kingdom. We are the 4 devolved nations, and as such, it's about time we had equality across the board. We have to also think that if in London anybody mentioned that they were going to move from 60 to 66, there would be outcry. Equally, the same would be said for Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And yet here we are as Geordies, accepting that we have to wait until the grand age of 66. Well, it's unacceptable. We need the same rights as the rest of the country. And again, it starts here and now. We have to go to government and ensure that the funding formula is correct and righted. And I'm sure that from this evening, we can look towards getting it down from 66 to 60. And one last point is the government is currently looking at the pensionable age. And of course, it's due to go up yet again to 67. And of course, at which point, if we were to stick to the 66 that we have for the concessionary travel, it would then be going up to 67. Whereas again, unlike the likes of London, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, it would remain at 60. So, Lord Mayor, we have a motion here this evening. We can all support it. Let's ensure we get the same rights and privileges as the rest of the country. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. Is the amendment agreed? Yeah. Is the motion as amended agreed? Thank you very much. 16, notice of motion ending the 2-child benefit cap and no recourse to public funds, brackets, NRPF close brackets. I'll call on Councillor Hartley to move this motion to be seconded by Councillor Tracy Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's 9 p.m, but it's never too late for Newcastle to strengthen our position against poverty. This motion addresses 2 policies, different in design, but united in their harm. The 2-child benefit cap and no recourse to public funds. Both rest on the same dangerous principle, that poverty is an acceptable, even deliberate outcome of policy. That suffering is a tool to drive better choices, or worse, that some families simply don't deserve support. Here in Newcastle, we see the human cost. In my work in healthcare, at my council of surgeries, on the doorstep in Byker, I've seen the impact of these rules. Families denied help because they had a 3rd child. Parents unable to access support because of their immigration status. Mothers hiding their distress from their children. Young people forced into hardship by rules they never chose and which don't make sense. Let's start with the two-child benefit cap. It strips £3,250 per child per year from families who are already struggling. Nearly 40% of children in our city are affected. That is staggering, and every one of those children matters. This policy is morally indefensible and economically incoherent. It traps families in poverty and punishes parents for private decisions that should never be policed by the state. No recourse to public funds is less visible, but just as harmful. It doesn't just mean no benefits, it means no safety net at all, no housing support, no child benefit, no universal credit, even in crisis. Access to healthcare that's conditional, limited and uncertain, and for many families, just £6.43 a day to survive, with no control over where they live or when they might be moved. Let's be clear, that's not support. That's managed destitution. In the face of this, groups like Elsick Mutual Aid and Biker Mutual Aid, born out of pandemic solidarity, have stepped in where government have stepped away. They've delivered food, offered financial help, and protected dignity where policy offers only indifference. And I looked at the amendment from the Labour group. I really recognise the help that the North East Combined Authority and the Council try to offer, and I have found the officers in the Council incredibly helpful on these issues many times. But this is despite the system, not because of it. And my concern with the amendment is that it creates the false impression that the good work of the Council makes up for the benefit cap and no recourse to public funds policy. It doesn't. Now, Elsick Mutual Aid has since grown into an organisation called Food and Solidarity, a campaign for long-term change on child poverty, rooted in lived experience. And it's thanks to Food and Solidarity that we're bringing this motion to Council today. It's written by them, edited with them, proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, and I trust voted for by all councillors across the chamber. The no recourse to public funds policy says you live here, but you're not welcome. It creates a chilling effect where people are too afraid to ask for help, even when their children are hungry, in case it jeopardises their immigration status. And that affects us all. It drives up emergency costs for councils, it undermines public health, it fragments our communities. That's why this motion matters in its unamended form. And I would encourage you all to vote for the unamended form. Newcastle has already stood up against the cap, against hostile immigration policies, against using poverty as a tool of governance. Today, we reaffirm that stance and we act. You've seen what we're calling for. Today's motion isn't about political parties. It's about shared values. It's about who we are as a city. So I hope everyone here, whatever party you belong to or none, can support this motion, because no child should be punished for the order they were born in, and no family should be punished for where they came from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tracy Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sometimes a policy is harmful, not because it's badly designed, but because it does exactly what it's meant to. The two-child benefit cap and the no recourse to public funds are both doing what they intended to do, to deter, divide, and to deny support to people considered less deserving. But when I think about what it means in practice, I think of stories we hear, the women who came to Britain with their children, escaping abuse and violence, asking for the chance to rebuild. Because of the no recourse to public funds, they're told no housing support, no access to basic benefits, no help. Babies born into poverty, not because of bad luck, but because the system was designed that way. Think of the teachers who report that they've stopped asking children what they'd had for breakfast because the answers had started to become too upsetting. Nothing, crisps, or just silence. And they know it isn't because their parents don't care. It's because of a policy that tells them, after child 2, you're on your own. These are not rare or exceptional cases. They're played out every week in our schools, in our services, and behind closed doors across Newcastle. And we should not accept this. I want to thank groups like Food and Solidarity and the mutual aid networks across the city for doing more than handing out food. They are creating spaces where people are seen, where dignity isn't means-tested, and where care isn't conditional. And they are asking us, what kind of city do you want to be? The motion gives us a chance to answer that, to say yes, we see the cost, financially, emotionally and socially, But we also see the possibilities of something better, not just more humane policies, but a more united approach across this chamber. We don't have to agree on everything, but if we can't agree that no child should be left out of support and no family should be punished for seeking safety, then we have lost something fundamental. So I ask all colleagues to support the motion, and let's speak with one voice today, because every child matters and every family deserves a future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. As intimated by Councillor Hartley, there is an amendment. Can I call on Councillor McCartney to move the amendment to be seconded by Councillor Story?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Hartley for bringing forward this motion. I hope, Lord Mayor, that this is treated by Council members as a friendly amendment. All that we've done in our amendment is add in those opportunities that Newcastle City Council takes to do their little bit, and I accept Councillor Hartley doesn't think it makes up the gap. None of us are saying that what the council does makes up the gap. It's impossible. You need government support and government funding in order to do that. Lord Mayor, this council has previously agreed, as the mover has said, a motion on this criticising the two-child benefit cap. And as far as I think on this side of the council chamber, we will always call for what is right for residents in our city. And we recognise the impact that poverty has on people's lives, whether that's on the lives of families or on the lives of asylum seekers. Lord Mayor, we need to recognise what the City Council is doing. We need to recognise the work on auto-enrolment on free school meals. That's an important aspect of what we can do. And the additional investment that's been agreed, and I hope that the government are fully funding it so that schools don't have to subsidise the increased amount for extending opportunities for free school meals to children, because that's a really important aspect of the work. And if the government aren't fully funding that, I know on this side of the council chamber we'll be continuing that lobbying to make sure schools don't suffer from having to find that funding. Lord Mayor, the motion also recognises that the elected mayor of the Combined Authority, Kim McGuinness, said very clearly that she was going to do her best to fight child poverty in her role as mayor of the Combined Authority, and we're calling on her to reaffirm her commitment to that and recognise that although we've not seen anything firm from Bridget Phillipson, I think the mood music that we've heard around the child poverty work that's going on nationally may well address the issues that we're discussing tonight. I move the amendment, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Story to second.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight on the impact of the two-child benefit cap and on no recourse to public funds. I've been very moved by all of the speeches that I've heard tonight across the chamber and from the side here. I think fundamentally we are absolutely in agreement, and families affected by the two-child cap and no recourse to public funds are in a dire and desperate situation. We know that both of these policies disproportionately affect migrant families and those with secure immigration status. I've talked a little bit tonight about my work, and again, this is a matter that I see every single day, and I know that children who need to thrive, they need these benefits, they need these things to be in place, and we absolutely need to call on this to be ended. The result is a growing number of children in our city are living in poverty, despite the fact that their parents are often working or actively contributing to our communities. Our government says that no child should be in poverty and that children should enjoy the best start in life. And the ambitions that we have in Newcastle, we've made this our core business. And just to reiterate, that's why we've added the amendment, because we really wanted to highlight the excellent work that is taking place by this authority to tackle poverty and child poverty. I would ask you to consider supporting the amendment for that very reason, but fundamentally, I absolutely back what you're saying, and that we do need to end the two-child benefit cap and the appalling situation of no recourse to public funds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Story. A couple of people have asked to speak. Councillor Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's great to hear the comments from the Labour group and from this side of the chamber. I think the reason that I am opposed to the amendment is in the last line of it, because this is not about review and reflect. This is about action. So I would ask the Labour group whether they can actually support everything that they're saying and issue a very clear call for action to the government, rather than just asking for yet another review that could take several years to report.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Christine Morrissey? You're down to speak? No? Oh, thank you, Christine. In that case, don't think there's any other hands? No. Can I ask Councillor Hartley to respond, please, to
I'll keep it brief. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Story and Councillor McCarthy for speaking up and joining with us on calling to say no to the two-child benefit cap and no recourse to public funds. I hope you've seen that the way I've delivered this speech today is not to make any party political points. I think it's important that we keep that out of this, because those of us in this chamber are united in speaking with clarity and urgency on behalf of those who go unheard. I could have used this motion. I could have used this motion to be party political. So could you in your response, and we haven't done that. You've spoken about the hard work that the council do, trying to plug the gap. I heard what you were saying, Councillor McCarthy, about the free school meals and how you hope that the government are going to make sure that funding comes forward. But hope isn't enough, is it? And that's why I'm saying we need to stay firm and be clear in what we're saying today. And be absolutely clear. So, I say this again. This isn't about green or red or yellow or blue or black and white. It's about who we are as a city. And it's about whether we believe every child deserves a chance and every family deserves dignity. So please vote for the unamended motion, and we can really send a message to the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll ask, is the amendment agreed? No. Okay. Linda, can you start the go vote? Has everybody completed that who can do? Yeah. Okay, can we close that, Linda? We made a note. I now ask for a show of hands of the members who've been unable to vote electronically. Those of you who are in favour of the amendment, please. Right. 3, yep. Those against, please. 2. Two, yes. If I don't use my casting vote, the amendment will fall. I'm choosing not to use my casting vote. So, the substantive motion then, which isn't amended, is that agreed? Thank you very much, Council. And that ends tonight's business. Thank you for attending the first business meeting of City Council of 25-26 municipal year. I look forward to seeing you next month at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of July. Thank you.